नमस्ते नमस्ते।
नमस्कार हमारे सभी दर्शकों को और हमारे जो बड़े हैं बीबी दादा, एएम दादा, जया दादा और विक्रम भाई को भी
मैं बड़ा नहीं हूँ आपसे। नमस्कार।
मेरे
सभी
बैकग्राउंड में वो
सभी
चल
को
रहा
प्रणाम।
था। जी दादा, प्रणाम दादा। तो अब हम विदाउट वेस्टिंग टाइम चलते हैं ब्लंडर्स ऑफ नेहरू पार्ट 12 पे। और ये 97 जो मेजर ब्लंडर्स हैं उनके ऊपर जो ब्लंडर्स हैं यानी एडिशनल ब्लंडर्स, ये वो हैं। तो इतने इन्होंने बंडल कर दिए कि पूरे देश की छाती में कफ बैठ गया, टीबी हो गई पूरे देश को। तो हम अब ये बोलेंगे, अपने दादा को रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे, एएम दादा को, कि वो जो है हमें यहाँ से आगे लेके चले। और मैं ब्लंडर्स पे चला जाता हूँ। ठीक है, हम थे अभी ब्लंडर नंबर 108 पे।
107
एक मिनट, 97 से हमने 2 एडिशनल कवर किए थे ना कल। 105, 106 और 7 कर दिया था हमने कवर। वही मैंने बोला था कि
हम लोग 108 पे हैं, लेकिन 106 को थोड़ा सा फिर से दिखाना है पब्लिक को।
ठीक है, तो आप दादा जिस आप 106 पे लेके जाएंगे ना, तो पेज नंबर है 3, कितना मैंने बोला था,
351 होगा।
350 दादा, 350 ना।
351
हाँ
होगा शायद।
बस आ गया
350 ये 350 है।
हाँ
यहाँ पे
350।
दोबारा पढ़ना है इसको फिर
तो
से।
इसमें सर ऐसा लिखा हुआ है कि
तो रिकैप कर रहे हैं, हम दादा को रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं कि ये आगे हमें लेके चले और बीबी दादा गाइड करेंगे।
सर मैं थोड़ा थोड़ा करके पढ़ता जाऊंगा, आप सर बताते जाएंगे।
हाँ, डॉक्यूमेंट के थ्रू दादा गाइड करेंगे और आप उसको अपने व्यूअर्स को बताएंगे। ठीक है दादा। तो मैं आपसे रिक्वेस्ट कर रहा हूँ कि आप
जी धन्यवाद।
सेंटर स्टेज दीजिए, मैं म्यूट हो रहा हूँ।
Facilitating Marxist communist entrenchment, Nehru remained sympathetic with and supportive of the Marxists, Communists, and the Communist Party of India, as did his dynasty, despite the following stark facts. They, Communists, extended their swearology to the Indian National Congress, calling it a conspiracy of India's capitalists and landlords in league with world imperialism. They had joined hands with the Raj in 1942 and spied on the patriots, receiving in return the British patronage. तो ये भी जानना जरूरी है कि कम्युनिस्ट जो थे वो they spied on the patriots.
कम्युनिस्ट
यही
को
तो
बोलते हैं, कमीना बोला करें, इनको ज्यादा अच्छा है। कमीने ऐसा है।
ये सर they had supported the demand for Pakistan during 1942 to 47 and helped the Muslim League fortify their case with a formidable array of arguments and statistics. They also advocated the balkanization of India into a score of sovereign states.
This is
They
very
had
important. This is very important.
They had denounced Sri Ramakrishna Paramhansa as a homosexual pervert, Swami Vivekananda as a Hindu imperialist, Sri Aurobindo as a dirty warmonger, Rabindranath Tagore as a pimp, and stalwarts of the freedom movement such as Sardar Patel as the progeny of pigs and bastards of Birla and Tata.
Viewers, please etch this in your mind. ये उसका फीलिंग था सबके प्रति। क्या सरदार पटेल को वो प्रोजेनी ऑफ पिग बोल रहा है, क्या बोलेंगे, एंड बास्टर्ड बिरला और टाटा का प्रोजेनी बोल रहा है, अरविंदो को वो डर्टी वॉर्ड मांजर बोल रहा है, रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर को पिंप बोल रहा है, विवेकानंद को हिंदू एम्पलिस्टिक बोल रहा है, और श्री रामकृष्ण परमहंस को होमोसेक्सुअल परवर्ट बोल रहा है, जबकि इसकी लड़की इंदिरा जी हर साल वेस्ट बंगाल में उनके आश्रम में जाया करती है। इतना डबल फेथ, ट्रिपल फेस बोलेंगे।
सिर्फ वोट के लिए सर,
टंग वाला ये
सिर्फ वोट
सांप
के
था,
लिए।
समझ में नहीं आता।
They
ये
had
देखो
come,
आगे।
come out openly in support of China when it occupied Tibet in 1950 and later drove out the Dalai Lama along with thousands of his followers in 1959. The extent to which Nehru could not entrench the Marxist, communist, leftist mafia, especially owing to the 1962 India-China war, his daughter more than compensated. She had no ideology except for unbridled power for herself and her dynasty, and the mafia was helpful in that regard. Communists even supported the emergency. Under her, that is Indira Gandhi, the progressive flock that included sycophants, time servers, and Moscow's hatchetmen multiplied fast and spread their tentacles in politics, academia, and the media.
यही याद
Blunder,
दिलाना था पब्लिक को दोबारा से। ये बाकी
जी सर,
तुमने पढ़ा हुआ है, इसमें तो
जी जी जी,
बुक की बात करता है ना, बुक नंबर 1 में क्या लिखा है, बुक नंबर 2 में क्या लिखा है, ऐसा कुछ क्या है, यही है ना। ये यहाँ से पढ़ लो, proof of pudding is, ये
हाँ.
पढ़ो।
Proof of pudding is in the eating. And so, what did Nehru's idea of India and its implementation during his overlong 17 years of rule deliver for India? A toxic, political, dynastic, and undemocratic, economic, socialistic, and poverty perpetuating, industrial, inefficient, and burdensome public and state sectors, agricultural, neglected and starved, making India a pathetically poor and hungry nation and an international beggar. Geographic and external security, most borders insecure, and a weak nation unable to defend itself. Administrative, incompetent and corrupt Babudam. Historical, Marxist, leftist, and negationist distortions. Educational, elitist, and no universal literacy. And cultural, no pride in Indian heritage, legacy. That
Now
was
we are
his
starting
idea of
fresh.
India.
Today's part is starting now. It is hubris, ill treatment of others. Blunder
Uh,
108. Modest academics. पढ़ा लिखा था नहीं. Pathetic grasp of vital issues. 8. He knows nothing and he thinks he knows everything. That point clearly to a political
Political
career.
career. This is George Bernard Shaw. While Nehru's academic achievements were rather modest, his knowledge and grasp of issues that mattered were pathetic, as is obvious from the net results of his policies. Yet the way he conducted himself showed off and belittled others was as if he were the brightest, all knowing, and wisest leader around. He was a graduate and passed the bar exams, wrote M.J. Akbar in Nehru, The Making of India. Eventually, when Jawaharlal, passed in the second half of the second class, Motilal was relieved enough to celebrate lavishly. Motilal was actually terrified that his son might fail, so even such moderate results were cause for celebrations. Motilal had set his heart on sending his son to the Indian Civil Service. He called the ICS the greatest of services in the world, but the weak second class of Jawaharlal Nehru at the end of Cambridge persuaded Motilal that his son was unlikely to get through the tough ICS examinations. His, Jawaharlal's, expenditure in 1911 was £800, enough to pay for 3 years of an ordinary student's existence. Contrast this with Ambedkar, who often skipped meals or ate frugally to save money when he was studying in London. In Dr. Ambedkar, Life and Mission, Dhananjay Keir mentions that Ambedkar subsisted in London on mere £8 a month. That amounts to £96 a year. Compare this with £800 a year of Nehru, which excluded expenses for several other requirements that were separately arranged by Nehru's father. With all these handicaps, Ambedkar graduated in political science and economics from Bombay University in 1912. On scholarship from the Maharaja of Baroda, he went to New York in 1913 and earned the degree of Masters of Arts in 1915, followed by doctorate in philosophy in 1916 from the
Columbia University.
Columbia University. Thereafter, he went to London where he joined the Gray's Inn for Law and the London School of Economics. He earned his second doctorate from the London School of Economics and he became a barrister. When Nehru scraped through graduation, Sardar Patel had topped in his exams in London. Subhash Bose was a brilliant student at Cambridge who had also cleared the ICS exam. Dr. Rajendra Prasad was a great scholar who
Topped his class.
always topped in his class. His examiner had once written a comment on his answer sheet. Examiner is better than examiner.
दादा एक
Wrote
मिनट,
जी सर.
जब हम लोग 4th क्लास में थे तो हमारे एक टीचर हुआ करते थे पंडित रामचंद्र शुक्ल. उन्होंने एक कहानी सुनाई थी. उन्होंने बोला था कि डॉक्टर राजेंद्र प्रसाद की जब कॉपी उनका टीचर चेक कर रहा था तो वो जो क्वेश्चन पेपर था वो 100 नंबर का था और उसने क्या किया था 200 नंबर दे दिए थे और उसमें ये लिखा था, जो ये लिखा हुआ ना, एग्जामिनर इज बेटर देन एग्जामिनर, ये लिखा था उसमें. ही वाज सो ब्रिलियंट.
Wrote Brigadier B.N. Sharma. Nehru admitted to the Harrow Public School with the influence of his father, never rose in his studies above mediocrity, and predictably had a poor legal practice later on. He never distinguished himself either in pursuit of education and knowledge or a single-minded devotion to a cause. Nehru was born to greatness, and a great part of the credit goes to his father. We Indians have a weakness for white skin. Nehru was inevitably a beneficiary of this Indian psyche.
कल हम लोग यही बोल रहे थे ना, यही तमाशा था. यस.
Perry Anderson, a British historian and political essayist and professor of history and sociology at UCLA, wrote, Nehru
UCLA
had enjoyed
University of California, Los Angeles.
हाँ, वो बताना जरूरी है. मेरे लड़के का एडमिशन हुआ था यहाँ पे लॉ में, लेकिन गया नहीं. वो बोलते बहुत वहाँ पे बहुत जबरदस्त, वहाँ पे बहुत खर्चा लगता है ना कैलिफोर्निया में.
महंगा है, रहने का वो है और वैसे भी एक्सपेंसिव है. UCLA is a pretty good university or college, तो एक्सपेंसिव है.
और दूसरा वहाँ पर वो बहुत है ना, शायद वो रेसिस्ट का भी चेक करें ना, वो ब्लैक ज्यादा, निग्रो ज्यादा है ना वहाँ पे.
सारी जगह ज्यादा उनकी.
ऐसा कुछ बता रहे थे लोग बाग. तो दैट्स व्हाई आई प्रेफर्ड अपना बाल्टीमोर, मैरीलैंड. मैंने वहाँ भेजा नहीं.
Okay.
Nehru had enjoyed the higher education Gandhi didn't have and an intellectual development not arrested by intense religious belief. But these advantages yielded less than might be thought. He seems to have learned very little at Cambridge, scraping a mediocre degree in natural sciences that left no trace thereafter, did poorly in his bar exams, and was not much of a success when he returned to practice law in his father's footsteps. The contrast with Subhash Chandra Bose, a brilliant student of philosophy at Cambridge, was the first native to pass the exams into the elite ranks of the Indian civil service, and then decline entry to it on patriotic grounds is striking. But an indifferent beginning is no obstacle to subsequent flowering, and in due course Nehru became a competent orator and prolific writer. What he never acquired, however, was a modicum of literacy, taste, or mental discipline. His most ambitious work, The Discovery of India, which appeared in 1946, is a steam bath of
Summary.
former sentimental enthusiasm. It would be unfair to compare Nehru to Ambedkar, the leader of the untouchables, intellectually head and shoulders above most of the Congress leaders, owing in part to far more serious training at the LSE and Columbia. To read Ambedkar is to enter into a different world. The discovery of India, not to speak of its predecessor, the unity of India, illustrates not just Nehru's lack of formal scholarship and addiction to romantic myth, but something deeper, not so much an intellectual as a psychological limitation, a capacity for self-deception with far-reaching political consequences. Nehru's treatment of subjects in his books are superficial. You will find no critical appraisals of the topics he dealt with in his books, whether on history, or on politics, or on economics. You find Nehru devoting several chapters to socialism and Marxism in his book, Glimpses of World History, without dealing with the reported pathetic state of affairs in Russia. His treatment is more romantic than critical. He talks of Marxism, but there is no contrasting coverage on Adam Smith and others, or on the most robust economy of the time, that of the United States. There is little attempt in his books to critically assess and evaluate competing options. He talks of state controls and its benefits in his chapter on Marxism, never once questioning that the state itself could be mafia-like and the biggest exploiter. It is presumed that the state would be a nice, just, empathetic, kind good doer, do-gooder, full of compassion. Further, it does not touch upon things like entrepreneurship, individual initiative, and other critical factors. In the absence of a holistic coverage on the vital aspects that affect economy, his treatment appears no more than just a superficial story. Nehru fascinated himself to be a student of history, international relations, and foreign policy, actually a master of these subjects, going by the books he wrote and the way he pontificated. But sadly, he ignored lessons from history, as the results of his policies proved, wrote M.O. Mathai. Contrary to the general impression, neither Churchill nor Nehru were widely read men. They wrote and spoke more than they read in their lives. Rustomji observed, on certain occasions when he, Nehru, had to tell a story, as for instance at a dinner party, he came out with such antiquated ones that one could hardly laugh. He, Nehru, did use wit and humor sometimes in public meetings, but there again, the stuff used was juvenile. Blunder number 108. Lordly ways goodbye to Gandhian simplicity. Gandhi had spoken thus of Jawaharlal Nehru. He says whatever is uppermost in his mind, but he always does what I want. When I'm gone, he will do what I'm doing now. Then he will speak my language too. Had Gandhi watched from the heavens the acts of his chosen protege, he would have been shocked. Nehru's loyalist, Rafi Ahmed Kidwai, had remarked, Jawaharlal has performed the last rites not only of Gandhi, but of Gandhism as well.
इसको हिंदी में
Nehru
बोल दो भाई.
बोल रहा है कि क्रियाक्रम जो है कर दिया गांधी का और गांधीज्म का भी, दोनों एक साथ क्रियाक्रम पूरा समाप्त कर दिया नेहरू.
गांधी का ही नहीं, गांधी जी को भी कर दिया क्रियाक्रम.
क्रियाक्रम एकदम. Nehru, who had ranted against Rajas, Maharajas, Nawabs, and feudal lords, adopted lordly and feudal ways and allowed the same to prosper under his democratic watch rather than his master's simplicity. Nehru adopted ostentatious viceroy-like trappings. After independence, Gandhiji had suggested that the Governor-General of Free India should stay in a modest accommodation rather than in the huge and imposing Viceroy Palace, later named as Rashtrapati Bhavan, which would be converted into a public hospital. But Nehru advised that an alternative suitable accommodation was not available. The place next in stateliness and grandeur to the Viceroy Palace was the residence of the British Commander-in-Chief, then called Flagstaff House. Leaving his York Road residence,
त्रिमुखी भवन बना दिया. हाँ.
Nehru occupied this magnificent house which was later renamed as Teen Murti Bhavan. Others followed Nehru's example, occupying huge, spacious bungalows. British had deliberately designed these palaces and bungalows to intimidate the natives, appear remote, and command respect. What was the logic of the leaders of Free India to follow in their footsteps? Nehru's secretary, M. O. Mathai, brought out the contrast. At 10 Downing Street, the British Prime Minister has only a couple of suites of rooms for his personal use. All the rest are offices and a few are public rooms. Tage Erlander, the Social Democratic Prime Minister of affluent Sweden for 20 years, lived in a three-room flat. His wife was a teacher. The Swedish government did not provide him with a car. The Prime Minister and his wife had a small car which they drove themselves. They could not afford to keep a driver. Labour Prime Minister Joseph Keighley of rich Australia lived in two rooms in a second-class hotel near his office. His wife preferred to live on their farm. The Prime Minister was not provided with a car. He walked between his hotel and his office. What an irony! The non-Gandhians of the rich Western countries were being Gandhi-like, while the Gandhian congressmen of our own poor, pathetic, post-independent India were adopting the ways of Rajas and Maharajas, whose feudal, privileged lifestyle they, particularly Nehru, had been cursing all through. As per MP Raj Bhavan website, on a visit of Jawaharlal Nehru to Bhopal, the Raj Bhavan staff realized that the favorite cigarette brand of Nehruji, 555, was not available in the Raj Bhavan. Nehruji used to have a cigarette after his meals. The staff immediately sent a plane to Indore for airlifting Nehruji's favorite pack, which was kept ready at Indore airport. Wrote S.
अरे वाह रे
Nijlingappa
बेसरम
in
बबलू
My Life and Politics.
बबलू
हाँ दत्ता सुन रहा हूँ।
सिगरेट पीने के लिए उसके पास में नहीं था तो भोपाल से इंदौर हवाई जहाज गया, वहां से टिकट पाई को लेकर गया।
मजे मार रहा था, मजे सुन रहा हूँ मैं।
Wrote S. Nijlingappa in My Life and Politics. But after becoming Prime Minister, he, Nehru, left 17 York Road, a fairly large building, and moved to possibly the second largest official residence next to Rashtrapati Bhavan. His reason of doing so was that official dignity required it. In contrast, I may mention the instance of Ho Chi Minh, the president of Vietnam. When I saw him during his visit to Delhi, he said he had only a few clothes and only two pairs of sandals and lived in a small house. But in independent India, simple living became an exception. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, throughout his stay in Delhi, whether before or after accepting office, lived in a small house at Aurangzeb Road, only large enough for himself and his daughter. Durga Das recorded, Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Pandit, Nehru's sister, told me, I never travelled without Ahmed, the liveried peon, matlab uniformed peon. The common people know me to be a minister because Ahmed is with me. The Salam Ahmed's livery, इसका यूनिफॉर्म देखकर सलाम करते थे लोग, मतलब ये पियोन का. Nehru himself realized this well enough when he became the Prime Minister and had a retinue of peons and security staff, several times the size any viceroy had had when he moved among people. Blunder 110. Arrogant, conceited, and full of hubris. Nehru regarded himself as a great academic and intellectual, a highly knowledgeable individual, an internationalist, and an expert in international affairs, a liberal modernist, rational, of scientific temperament and thinking, and someone who knew what was best for the Indian economy, and indeed for all aspects of the Indian polity and the people. Not just that, he was conceited enough to look down upon most as lesser beings, labeling them in a derogatory way or using choice adjectives for their remarks or thinking, childish, juvenile, and so on. The irony is that if one studies in depth the various actions and the net result of those actions of Nehru in various fields, one finds that Nehru actually had much to be modest and apologetic about, and little to be conceited about. His naivety in statecraft was astounding. The blunders recounted in this book speak for themselves. Many wonder what made Nehru so full of hubris. It could certainly not have been on account of his academics or his earnings or his books. If he knew good English, so did many others. If he was educated in England, so also many others. If he was westernized, so were many others. If he had participated in the freedom struggle, so had thousands, and many had actually sacrificed much more. If he thought he was exceptionally intelligent and knowledgeable and a great leader, how come he made so many blunders, all major, with severe long-term adverse consequences for the country? In fact, Nehru was able to dominate only because he was still active in politics. Almost all his equals and superiors and potential rivals died. Gandhi, Subhash Bose, Patel, Ambedkar. His arrogance came in the way of others, sharing their opinions with him freely. They were afraid of his temper. This prevented him from heeding sane advice of others and doing course correction, even when things were going downhill. He made blunder after blunder, with no one daring to counsel him. While in England, he wrote to his father Motilal on July 1910, "My chief reasoning for wishing to go to Oxford is Cambridge and is becoming too full of is oh sorry. My chief reasoning for wishing to go to Oxford is Cambridge, which is becoming too full of Indians, such as from the grandson of the policeman, गंगाधर नेहरू कोतवाल थे क्या इसीलिए policeman बता रहा हूँ. Nehru's white skin, his education in Eton and Cambridge. So kindly see the audacity of this person. He's saying that his wishing to go to Oxford is because Cambridge is becoming too full of Indians. Nehru's white skin, his education in Eton and Cambridge, his westernized upbringing, and his identification with the English Moors perhaps made him feel he was entitled to be as arrogant as them and as contemptuous towards the native Indians. In a conference of Asian African countries in 1955, the then Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, John Kotlawala, took some pot shots at communism and Soviet colonialism. Nehru later accosted him and asked him in an admonitory tone why he had not shown his speech to him beforehand. Back came the reply from John Kotlawala to Nehru, "Why should I? Do you show me yours before you give them?" Shankar Ghosh, in his Jawaharlal Nehru A Biography, quotes Zhou Enlai's comment of October 1964, about 5 months after Nehru's death. "I have met many leaders of the world. I met Khrushchev. I met Chiang Kai-shek. I met American generals, but I've never met a more arrogant man than Nehru. I'm sorry to say this, but this is true. In a lighter vein, it is also said that Zhou Enlai was in fact so highly cheesed off with Nehru's condescending behavior that he inflicted the India-China war to avenge it. During his talks with Kissinger, he was reported to have said that Nehru had become so cocky that China decided to put down his cockiness. Nehru had visited the United States in 1961, wrote Kuldeep Nair. Kennedy organized a breakfast meeting with Nehru and top US economists and foreign policy experts. Nehru was late for the meeting and generally monosyllabic in his responses. The breakfast ended in 20 minutes. Some of them reported this to Kennedy, who remarked in the presence of his aides that Nehru had lived too long. says Dalai Lama.
दादा
in his
एम दादा एक मिनट रुकिए.
Yes, sir.
एम दादा
बोलिए बोलिए.
ये कुछ लाइंस पता नहीं पहले एक दो एपिसोड में भी थी. मैं उससे बोलना चाहता था. ये जो लिखा है ना कि टॉप इकोनॉमिस्ट बिजनेस लीडर्स के साथ मीटिंग हुई, आई डिडंट पे अटेंशन, 20 मिनट में खत्म हो गई. 2 इंसिडेंट बताता हूँ. जब जेआरडी टाटा को इंदिरा गांधी ने बुलाया था कि तेरे को एयर इंडिया की चेयरमैनशिप से हम हटा रहे हैं, और वो कुछ और बात कर रहा था. जेआरडी टाटा की 90s में इंटरव्यू में उसने बोला कि इंदिरा गांधी स्टार्टेड लुकिंग ऑन द साइड, मतलब खिड़की से बाहर देख रही है. शी इज नॉट पेइंग एनी अटेंशन टू व्हाट. फास्ट फॉरवर्ड, असम के चीफ मिनिस्टर शर्मा जी, उनका पीछे मैं इंटरव्यू सुन रहा था. कहता जब मैं कांग्रेस में था, मैं राहुल गांधी के पास दिल्ली में उनके घर में था, मैं इतनी इंपॉर्टेंट बिजनेस की और बातें कर रहा था, वो अपने कुत्तों को खिला रहा था.
तो
और
बिस्किट
फिर
खिला रहा था,
प्लेट
वही
में,
मेरे को दे रहा था.
हाँ वही मेरे को दे रहा था. मतलब यानी कि उसने प्लेट में से एक बिस्किट उठाया राहुल ने, कुत्ते को खिलाया, और वही प्लेट हमारे आगे कर दी. तो दिस रन्स इन द फैमिली हो, दिस इज अ जेनेटिक मेकअप. ज्यादा यही कहना चाहता था इस पॉइंट पे.
क्या भारती साहब, कल कल हम लोग सुन रहे हैं आप?
जी दादा,
कल हम लोगों ने पढ़ा था ना,
मैं सुन रहा हूं दादा.
जब गोपालाचारी ने स्वतंत्र पार्टी बनाई थी, तो उसको इन्होंने जेआरडी टाटा ने और बिरला ने पैसे देने शुरू कर दिए थे. तो स्वतंत्र, तो जवाहरलाल नेहरू को उस समय गुस्सा आया था, और जवाहरलाल नेहरू ने तभी से जेआरडी टाटा को, बिरला को, दोनों को मतलब इग्नोर मारना शुरू कर दिया था. और वही इंदिरा गांधी ने टाटा के साथ में किया था. दैट वाज द एनमिटी, कि तुमने राजगोपालाचारी को क्यों पैसे देते हो, सब जितना पैसा है ना हमारे को दो. इलेक्शन फंडिंग के बारे में हमने पढ़ा था कल वाले चैप्टर में, कहीं पर था वो, शायद दादा को याद होगा.
हाँ मेरे को याद दादा. मैं थोड़ा, हाँ मैं सुन रहा था क्योंकि काम भी चल रहा था, तो आई रिमेम्बर दैट लाइन.
कल आप काम कर रहे थे, उसमें ध्यान नहीं दिया होगा.
क्या पार्टी का नाम था दादा?
हाँ,
स्वतंत्र पार्टी ना.
नहीं, ये लाइन मैंने सुनी थी कि एक पार्टी बनाई थी जिसको जेआरडी टाटा बिरला ने पैसे दे रहे थे. इतना मैंने सुना था. उस पार्टी का नाम मेरे को याद नहीं. अभी आपने बोला था क्या नाम है उसका? स्वतंत्र पार्टी. राइट, गॉट इट दादा. ठीक है.
दलाई लामा क्या बोल रहे हैं, पढ़िए तो.
Says Dalai Lama in his autobiography, Freedom in Exile. I, Dalai Lama, then explained to Nehru that I had not originally intended to seek India's hospitality, feeling let down by Nehru's attitude, but that I had wanted to establish my government at Lunse, Zong. Only the news from Lhasa had changed my mind. At this point, Nehru became rather irritated. The Indian government could not have recognized it even if you had, he said. I began to get the impression that Nehru thought of me as a young person who needed to be scolded from time to time. During other parts of the conversation, he banged the table. How can this be? He asked indignantly once or twice. However, I went on in spite of the growing evidence that he could be a bit of a bully. Many British found Nehru to be vain and supercilious. Viceroy Linlithgow and Wavell gave him no importance. In their dealings after Indian independence, the Americans too found Nehru to be arrogant. M.J. Akbar in Nehru, The Making of India, writes about an episode in the pre-independence period of a number of poor villagers from the villages near Allahabad approaching him to verify the actual extremely pathetic condition firsthand. Nehru was not particularly enthusiastic about taking up the mission, particularly in the hot summers. However, he was touched when he learned that hundreds of ill-clad villagers had built roads for him overnight so that his car could take him to the innermost recesses of rural India, and saw the eagerness with which they physically lifted his car when it got stuck in the soft mud. After all, he was still an Indian Sahib in a hat and silk underwear.
एक मिनट दादा, एक मिनट वेट. बबलू
हाँ चाचा.
ये पहली बार 52 में इलेक्शन जो लड़ा था ना,
हाँ जी।
उस समय हमारा सिराथू भी उसी कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी में आता था। फूलपुर सिराथू सब एक था।
अच्छा।
तो जो सिराथू में जो जहाँ पर वो रावण बना हुआ है ना पीछे, जहाँ पे रामलीला का वो सांप
हाँ हाँ
बिठाई
हाँ हाँ हाँ
जलाते हैं,
हाँ 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 हाँ।
वहां पर ये भाषण देने के लिए आया था। और
ओके।
उस समय कई लोगों ने जो वहां पर अपने इलाके में जो प्रॉब्लम है ना उसको बताया था कि फाटक में जब ट्रेन जाती है तो बहुत ज्यादा भीड़ हो जाती है, उसके लिए कुछ कर दो, ये कर दो, वो कर दो। तो इसने कुछ ध्यान नहीं दिया था। उन्होंने ये भी बोला था कि जो कड़ा का जो घाट है ना वहां से आगे तरफ को गुतनी घाट की तरफ को ब्रिज बनवा दो गंगा पे, वो भी नहीं बनवाने के लिए तैयार नहीं हुआ था। बोले तुम तो हमारे इलाके को, अगर तुम्हारे इलाके में काम करूंगा तो लोग मेरे को बदनाम करेंगे कि अपने इलाके में काम कर रहे हैं। ये इसका
ओ
एटीट्यूड।
माय गॉड। मतलब कि तब की प्रॉब्लम अब सॉल्व हुई है जाके, वो अब 2023 में।
ये पिताजी बताते हैं क्योंकि हम लोगों ने जाकर के, हम लोग बीन वीन लेकर के, सहनाई लेकर के वोट देने के लिए गए थे 52 में जब इसने मांगे थे वोट। और हम लोगों ने यही बोला था कि पंडित जी ये कर दो, लेकिन पंडित जी ने करके नहीं दिया कि
नहीं
अपने इलाके में काम करूंगा तो पूरा जो हिंदुस्तान है मेरे को बदनाम करेगा कि अपने इलाके में काम कर रहा है।
तभी तो वो पिछड़ा हो गया था, बिल्कुल बैकवर्ड हो गया था वो इलाका, अब तक पिछड़ा हुआ था।
अभी कभी किसी ने ध्यान नहीं दिया उस इलाके को।
अभी वो पुल बना है, वो रेलवे फाटक के ऊपर पुल
हम्म
बन गया, और वो जो गंगा के ऊपर भी कहते हैं उधर पुल बन गया है।
हाँ, वहाँ भी बन गया।
इधर
हाँ।
राजापुर से मयावा घाट वाला भी ब्रिज अभी बना ना।
और अभी एक और बन रहा है उधर। अभी हम कब गए थे वहां पे, 2018 में। तो एक वो सिराथू से पहले जो रेलवे स्टेशन पड़ता है वहां पे भी पुल बन रहा है।
सुजातपुर सयारा।
हाँ हाँ, वहां पे भी बहुत बड़ा पुल बन रहा था।
ब्लंडर 111 पंडित
Blunder
मतलब
111. Bharat Ratna, ignoring the deserving. Bharat Ratna was awarded to Sardar Patel in 1991 and to Dr. Ambedkar in 1990. That too because they were non-dynasty governments. That too because there were non-dynasty governments since December 1989. VP Singh, then Chandrashekhar, followed by Narasimha Rao. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was declared as the greatest Indian after Gandhi in the Outlook CNN IBM History 18 TV channel BBC poll, the results of which were announced on 15th of August 2012. Yet, he was given the Bharat Ratna only in 1990. In the poll, while Ambedkar topped with 19,91,734 votes, Nehru at the bottom at number 10 just got 9,921 votes. Bose was awarded Bharat Ratna posthumously in 1992, which was later withdrawn on a legal technicality in response to a Supreme Court directive. The government was asked to submit conclusive evidence of Netaji's death, which it could not. However, the intriguing point is how come they thought of the award to Netaji only in 1992, even though the amendment to give awards posthumously was made in 1955 itself. Radhakrishnan was awarded Bharat Ratna in 1954, Rajaji in 1954, Nehru in 1955 when he was himself the Prime Minister, Govind Ballabh Pant in 1957, D.C. Roy in 1961, Zakir Hussain in 1963, Indira Gandhi in 1971 when she was herself the Prime Minister, V.V. Giri in 1975, sorry, Kamraj in 1976, Vinoba Bhave in 1983, MGR in 1988, and Rajiv Gandhi in 1991. But Sardar Patel, Subhash Chandra Bose, and Dr. Ambedkar, being not as great as these worthies, got it later. The dynasty did not like them. It has been that personal is a feudal democracy. Of course, the only unjust thing that the dynasty did was to have left out poor Sanjay Gandhi. Sorry.
राहुल गांधी जब प्राइम मिनिस्टर बनेगा तो दे देगा संजय गांधी को। वही बाकी
Non-dynasty
रह गया है।
greats. Yes, sir. Non-dynasty greats can wait, may even die. There's no hurry. But dynasty scions, great or otherwise, can be made to wait. Two allowed themselves to be awarded the Bharat Ratna when they were themselves in power. Nehru in 1955 and Indira Gandhi in 1971, while Rajiv Gandhi was awarded the same soon after his death in 1991. When sounded for Bharat Ratna, Maulana Azad declined and told Nehru it was totally improper for those deciding on the awards to pin the medal on themselves. Azad got it posthumously. Plunder 112. Nehru and Netaji Subhash mystery. Dynacracy, that is, dynastic democracy, is unfair and is against the spirit of the Constitution. It discounts merit and prevents competence from rising. The quality of leadership emerging out of a dynastic process can never be really be good. Yet another major negative of dynacracy is that it suppresses truth. Continuance of dynacracy requires that the halo be maintained. That requires hiding the ugly, highlighting the positive. The latter is mostly manufactured. Both hiding the ugly and highlighting the manufactured positive requires continued suppression of truth. Among the biggest suppression of truth by Nehru and his dynasty is the Netaji Subhas death mystery, prompting Anuj Dhar to title his book on the subject as India's biggest cover-up. Congress. Nehru's crash claim. It was claimed that Netaji Subhash had perished in a plane crash in Taipei on 18th of August 1945 and that his ashes are enshrined in Tokyo's Renkoji Temple. This was a version accepted by Nehru and the Congress and was the conclusion of the first two inquiry commissions on Netaji, who had conveniently endorsed the government's position or rather deliberate misinformation. Reportedly, a Mitsubishi Ki-21 heavy bomber took off from Saigon Airport at 2 p.m. on 17th of August 1945. The bomber was being used for transportation, but it had no seats. It didn't have parachutes either. Passengers had to squat on floor on cushions. Inside the bomber were 13 people, including Netaji Bose and Lieutenant General Tsunamasa Shidei of the Imperial Japanese Army. Bose was accompanied by his ADC and INS Deputy Chief of Staff, Lieutenant Colonel Habibur Rahman. The plane landed for refueling in Taihoku, Formosa, now Taipei, Taiwan, after an overnight halt in Vietnam. Moments after the flight took off after refueling on 18th of August 1945, passengers heard a loud bang. Ground crew saw the port side engine fall off and the plane crashed. The pilots and Lieutenant General Shidai died instantly. Rahman, who miraculously survived, recalled that Nehru was doused in a splash of petrol when the plane crashed and his clothes subsequently caught fire. Netaji was badly burnt, was taken to hospital, but passed away a few hours later, unable to survive his burn injuries. But is the above story true?
ये
Why
कहाँ है अभी
crash?
हबीबुर रहमान?
इसे
हबीबुर रहमान
पाकिस्तान गया
जिंदा
था?
था कि नहीं था बाद में? हबीबुर रहमान का इन्होंने रिपोर्ट वो किया होगा ना, उसी को
नहीं,
एलाइ किया होगा
ये
ना।
पाकिस्तान गए थे ना इन लोग सब।
नो
आने वाले
ऑफिशियल
जो
कंफर्मेशन, दो नेहरू
मुस्लिम जो
पटेल
थे, शाहनवाज खान मिनिस्टर बन गए वहाँ।
दो नेहरू
Why crash?
related to crash this. पढ़ो 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 क्या लिख रहा है ये?
Why crash claim appears dubious? No official confirmation. Though Nehru had repeatedly reiterated the crash claim, there was no official confirmation either by Britain in power then or by the subsequent Indian government. Netaji to Suresh Bose in 1962 is writing, "You asked me to send you proof of the death of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Nehru to Suresh Bose in 1962. Nehru is writing, "You asked me to send you proof of the death of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. I cannot send you any precise and direct proof. Dead body? How come Netaji's other colleagues who were to follow him on another flight never saw his body? Why are no photographs taken of Netaji's injured state or his body in the hospital? Why was no death certificate issued? Biography of an INA recruiting officer. An article in Mumbai Mirror of 20th of August 2005 titled Nehru Ditched Bose, based on a biography of Dr. V.J. Anand, an INA recruiting officer, says Bose had not died in the so-called air crash on 18th of August 1945 in Taiwan. The story was a concoction by the Japanese to keep Bose safe in exile. Soviet diplomats had claimed that Bose was in Russia. Sardar Patel's response. Ahmad Jafar asked Sardar Patel, the then Home Minister in the interim government on 31st of October 1946 meeting, whether the government had evidence on the death of Bose. Patel's laconic reply was no. When pressed further, Patel replied, the government are not in a position to make any authoritative statement on the subject. When Patel was confronted with Nehru's definitive statement that Bose had died, Patel reiterated that the government had no view in the matter either way. Claim of Netaji's close relatives. Sarat Chandra Bose, the elder brother of Netaji, broke his 2-year silence during which he had been investigating the matter over the reported death of Netaji by stating in late 1947, Subhas is alive and Jawaharlal knows it. Sarat, Sarat lived with this conviction till his death in 1950. Emily Schenkel, Netaji's wife, refused to buy the story of death by plane crash. Indeed, indeed, Emily was so much against the said story that she refused to meet Pranab Mukherjee in 1995, the then External Affairs Minister, when he had approached her to discuss the possibility of transferring Subhas's ashes from Tokyo's Renkoji temple to India. Letter from Bose to Nehru and letter by Nehru to Attlee. Reportedly, Lord Wavell had mentioned that Nehru had received the letter from Bose after the date of his reported death. As for the submission made by one Mr. Shamlal Jain of Meerut to Khosla Commission that was set up in 1970, he was called by Nehru to Asif Ali's residence with a typewriter on 27th of December 1945. Netaji reportedly died on 18th of August and was given a letter to type. The following letter, Mr. Clement Attlee, British Prime Minister, 10 Downing Street, London. Dear Mr. Attlee, I understand from most reliable source that Subhash Chandra Bose, your war criminal, has been allowed to enter Russian territory by Stalin. This is a clear treachery and betrayal of faith by the Russians, as Russia has been an ally of the British Americans, which he should not have done. Please take care of it and do what you consider proper and fit. Yours sincerely, Jawaharlal Nehru.
ये कब का है? 26, 27th December. That means he is confirming that he is alive.
हाँ, war criminal बोल रहे हैं, has been allowed to enter. Subhash Chandra Bose, your war criminal, has been allowed to enter.
AM दादा,
ये सुन रहे हो, बोलिए.
नेहरू ने एक क्या गलती कर दी अपनी लेटर में. मेरी आवाज आ रही दादा?
आ रही.
एम दादा, मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
आ रही है सर, आ रही है साफ.
Yours sincerely की बजाय he should have written your obediently.
No, he wouldn't have written because he thought he was at par, on the same footing.
Obedient.
That of Clement
obediently, no, obediently.
No, he was thinking that now I'm the Prime Minister, so I'm in the same footing as you are.
अरे जयदीप साहब, जयवर्ती साहब, इतनी भी अंग्रेजी तो नहीं आती होगी ना उसको, तो क्या लिखना चाहिए?
नहीं भाई, नहीं, मैं कह रहा हूँ कि अगर वो ब्रिटिश क्राउन का अभी तक इतना फेथफुल था तो ही शुड हैव रिटन ओबीडियंटली, आई एम योर ओबीडियंट सर्वेंट, इंस्टेड ऑफ सिंसियरली.
अरे किसी ने टाइप कर दिया होगा, उसने साइन कर दिया होगा, खत्म हो गया. जिसने टाइप किया वो उसको सिंसियरली बोलता होगा ना, टाइपिस्ट जो होगा. इनने थोड़ा लिख दिया कि हाँ भाई ठीक है उसने लिखवाया था, दैट डजंट मीन कि उसने लिखवाया था। उसको इतना किधर आता था लिखना पढ़ना?
The above letter is a proof that Bose did not die in the air crash and that Nehru knew it. What is, however, worth noting and shocking are the use of words Bose, your war criminal by Nehru in the above letter. It clearly shows Nehru's disdain for Netaji and his insulting attitude. For Nehru, Bose was not a patriot who gave all to the nation. He was a war criminal meant to be treated as such. Justice Mukherjee Commission's categorical statement. As per a report in Outlook, the Taiwan government has informed that the one-man Netaji Commission of Inquiry The Taiwan government has informed the one-man Netaji Commission of Inquiry that there was no air crash at Taihoku on 18th of August 1945, till date believed to have killed Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Disclosing this to news persons after a routine hearing of the Justice Mukherjee Commission here, Justice M.K. Mukherjee said that the Taiwan government has confirmed to the Commission during its recent visit to that country that no plane crashed in Taihoku between August 14 and September 20, 1945. Declassifying files of snooping. Most of the 64 files declassified by the West Bengal government on 18th of September 2015 relate to snooping on the family members of Netaji. Their contents clearly establish that the Indian government, as well as several foreign governments connected with Netaji, believed Subhas was still alive and that he had not perished in the plane crash. Inquiry commissions. Number 1, Shah Nawaz Committee on Netaji Inquiry or the Netaji Inquiry Committee 1956. Nehru, in reply to a question put in the parliament by H.B. Kamath on 5th March 1952, said, I have no doubt in my mind. I have no doubt in my mind. I did not have it then, and I have no doubt today of the fact of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's death. There can be no inquiry about that. Nehru did his best for a decade to stall all inquiries into the death of Netaji, but when he could fend it off no longer, he decided to set up a committee that would give a report he desired. A committee headed by Shah Nawaz Khan, 24th of January 1914, 9th December 1983, a Congress MP and a former Lieutenant Colonel of INA, was appointed in 1956. Its other members were S.N. Maitra, ICS, nominated by the West Bengal government, and Suresh Chandra Bose, a non-political elder brother of Netaji. The committee came to be known as the Shah Nawaz Committee or the Netaji Inquiry Committee. The committee interviewed 67 witnesses in India, Japan, Thailand, and Vietnam between April and July 1956. The interviewees included the reported survivors of the alleged plane crash, one of whom was INA's Lieutenant Colonel Habibur Rahman, who had since joined the Pakistan military establishment.
इडियट कहीं का, तभी तो उसने ऐसा दिया था। अच्छा,
मैं बोला ना सर आपको,
हाँ, that means he was in hand class with Nehru ना, partition करवाने का वो होगा इस तरीके से
सबके सब they had connections with Pakistan. Two members of the inquiry committee, Shah Nawaz Khan and S.N. Maitra, concluded Bose had died in the plane crash. However, Suresh Chandra Bose, the third member, did not believe so and submitted a dissenting note. He claimed that certain crucial evidence was withheld from him, and he was pressurized by other members and also by the West Bengal Chief Minister B.C. Roy to sign the final report. Suresh Bose alleged, my colleagues, both connected with the government, have tried their utmost to secure and manipulate the evidence so that it could easily conform with the Prime Minister's statements. Incidentally, Shah Nawaz Khan held various ministerial posts between 1952 and 1977. Was he bought over? Khosla Commission 1970 to 1974. Owing to persistent doubts and pressure from many quarters, a one-man commission of inquiry headed by a retired Chief Justice of the Punjab High Court, G.D. Khosla, was set up in 1970. It submitted its report in 1974. Justice Khosla concurred with the earlier report of the Shah Nawaz Committee on the main facts of Bose's death. Justice Mukherjee Commission was dismayed by the sheer negligence of the Khosla Commission in omitting to pursue several crucial leads Dr. Satyanarayan Sinha had provided to unravel the Netaji mystery. Justice Mukherjee Commission of Inquiry, 1999 to 2005. Justice Mukherjee Commission of Inquiry was set up in 1999 during the Vajpayee's NDA regime following a Calcutta High Court order. It was headed by retired Supreme Court Judge Manoj Kumar Mukherjee. The commission studied hundreds of files on Bose's death drawn from several countries and visited Japan, Russia, and Taiwan. It submitted its report in 2005. The commission's conclusions were several. 1. The oral accounts on the plane crash were not reliable. 2. Bose had not died in the alleged plane crash. Thanks to the cooperation extended by Taiwan, it could be confirmed by the Commission that no air crash took place on 18th of August 1945. The US State Department too had corroborated the fact of no air crash in Taiwan on that day. 3. The plane crash was a ruse to allow safe escape of Bose by Japan and Taiwan. There was a secret plan to ensure Bose's safe passage to the USSR with the knowledge of the Japanese authorities and Habibur Rahman, who had testified on the plane crash. As per the report, on a conspectus of all the facts and circumstances relevant to the above issue, it stands established that emplaning at Saigon on 17th of August 1945, Netaji succeeded in evading the Allied forces and escaping out of their reach, and as a camouflage thereof, the entire make-believe story of the aircraft. Netaji's death therein and his cremation was engineered by the Japanese army authorities, including two doctors and Habibur Rahman, and then aired on 23rd of August 1945. 4. The Indian government subsequently came to know of the escape, but chose to suppress the report. 5. The ashes kept at the Renkoji temple in Japan, reported to be of Bose's, were of Ichiro Okura, a Japanese soldier who had died of cardiac arrest. The commission asked for a thorough probe into the Russian connection that contends that Bose had been detained in a Siberian camp. The commission could not find evidence that Gumnami Baba Bhagwanji, a monk who lived in Faridabad until his death in 1985, was Bose in disguise. However, later, Justice Mukherjee had commented, "It is my personal feeling, but I am 100% sure that he is Netaji." इसका सर वीडियो है। ये क्या हुआ सर, कैमरा चल रहा था, कैमरा बंद करने का टाइम आया तो उनको मालूम नहीं चला कि कैमरा बंद नहीं किया गया, तो थोड़ा मतलब क्या बोलूं मैं, भावुक होकर वो बोलने लगे कि आई एम 100% श्योर दैट द पर्सन इज दिस थिंग नेताजी, judging by his handwriting and
when the dead body of Lal Bahadur Shastri arrived at airport, he was there ना, वो भी तो फोटो है।
नहीं, वो फोटो दूसरा मंक का है सर, वो बाद में निकला कि वो दूसरा मतलब वो कोई थाई मंक का है, वो नेताजी का नहीं है। वो कॉलंड्रम बोल के किताब है इसका, ये क्या नाम है, अनुज धर का, इसको पढ़िएगा तो आपको मिल जाएगा सब इंफॉर्मेशन। The action taken report was tabled in the Parliament on 17th of May 2006 during the UPA-1 led by the Minister of State for Home, S. Reghupati, along with the JMC report. The ATR mentioned inter alia that the government had examined the Commission's report submitted to it on 8th of November 2005 in detail and has not agreed with the findings that Netaji did not die in a plane crash and the ashes in the Renkoji temple were not of Netaji. Expectedly, the Commission's report was rejected by the government.
You are an advocate.
Yes,
you
sir.
appoint one inquiry commission or something like that, and they submit a report, then how come this government has got authority to say that it is denied this thing, it is not agreeing? ये कौन इनको डिसाइड करता है कि एग्री करना है कि नहीं करना है?
But nobody has challenged this, ना. उसके बाद nobody challenged this. It should have been challenged. Because the government has no business to, opine on anything when it's not a part of the inquiry commission.
ऐसे ही वो श्री कृष्णा
The
कमिश्नर
inquiry
की
commission
रिपोर्ट आई थी ठाकरे
is
साहब के बारे में,
independent.
उसको कारपेट में
Yes,
डाल
sir.
दिया।
You're absolutely right, sir. The
जो
commission
वर्मा
is
कमीशन की
independent.
रिपोर्ट आई थी पवार के बारे में, उसको डाल दिया कारपेट में। क्या नाटक करते हैं लोग?
But nobody challenges these things. That is the sad part. Reportedly, the commission did not receive cooperation from either the Indian government or the foreign countries it visited, except Taiwan. The hostile posture of the British, Russian, Japanese, and Indian governments was intriguing and indicative of an international conspiracy to suppress the truth. The Indian government refused to share many important files and documents with the JMC under the pretext of them being sensitive. Disappointed, the JMC was forced to submit its unfinished work to the then Congress Home Minister Shivraj Patel. ये पढ़ना जरूरी है सर, बस भगवान जी और गुमनामी बाबा सुभाष.
नहीं, पब्लिक को पढ़ना होगा तो पढ़ लेगी अपने आप, हमें को नहीं पढ़ना।
ये ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है.
ये भी तो सुभाष के चक्कर में है।
Sir, surprisingly, now the daughter of Netaji has changed her stand. She is saying, no, he must have been dead. Why should we bother so much? Now she has changed her stand, and उसका ये और एक है ना, अपना क्या नाम है? अरे गवर्नमेंट में जो है, नाम भी मैं याद भी नहीं रखना चाहता हूँ. टीएमसी में नहीं है.
अभी
प्रोफेसर है.
अमृता?
नहीं, बोस है, प्रोफेसर
विमान बोस, क्या नाम है?
नहीं.
अच्छा,
अभी भी है.
चलो ठीक है, देखेंगे बाद में। टीएमसी में वहाँ का बंगाल का मिनिस्टर है?
हाँ.
अच्छा,
वो भी बोला कि नहीं, he died in the plane crash. They all
ज्यादा उनको फायदा हो रहा, बस आजकल अलग ही तरीके से चलते हैं। अगर नेताजी रहे होते तो ये जो बंगाल कम्युनिज्म की चपेट में गया है वो नहीं आया होता।
अब नेताजी को लोग कम्युनिस्ट बोलते हैं ना, एक्चुअली वो फायदा उठा रहे थे अपना समय का और मतलब कनेक्शंस का. वो एक्चुअली वैसे नहीं थे. अगर डीपली आप पढ़ोगे तो ही वाज नेवर अ कम्युनिस्ट.
देश को फ्री करने के लिए उन्होंने लड़ाई करी थी, ना कि कम्युनिज्म फैलाने के लिए। हाँ, ये ठीक है, अलायंस उन्होंने ऐसी बनाई थी जरूरत के समय पर।
तो अमेरिकन और ब्रिटिश भी तो बनाए थे स्टालिन के साथ, तो उनको फिर कम्युनिस्ट क्यों नहीं कहे? फिर अमेरिकन को भी क्यों नहीं कहे?
देखो, उन्होंने ये देखा कि रिसोर्सेज मुझे कहाँ से मिल सकते हैं, वहां से रिसोर्सेज लिए, डील करी। डील तो कोई भी कर सकता है। अगर हमें कोई कम्युनिस्ट जो है आज हमें मिल जाए कि हाँ, हम आपको ये रिवर्स कर देंगे, आपके देश में कम्युनिज्म हटा देंगे, बट आप हमको सपोर्ट करो, या कोई भी डील क्रैक होती तो कर लेंगे, क्या प्रॉब्लम है?
नहीं, एक थ्योरी और भी तो है ना कि had he been declared as alive, then but he had to have been surrendered to handed over to British ना, because he was war criminal. ये लोग फांसी में चढ़ा देते हैं ना उसको।
ये तो बाद में नाम हटा है ना यहाँ से।
डील इन्होंने करी ना ऐसी, ये तो डील करी इन्होंने ऐसी।
1945 में उसको जो मारा था ना, दैट वाज ठीक है, जापान ने कैमोफ्लेज किया था टू अलाउ हिम अ सेफ पैसेज टू रसिया। नाउ मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि रसिया के साथ में तो जवाहरलाल नेहरू के अच्छे संबंध थे, स्टालिन था उस समय वहां पर। तो यहाँ पर मतलब मैं ये नहीं बोल रहा हूँ कि मैं नेहरू की सपोर्ट कर रहा हूँ, बट बाई अलाउिंग सुभाष टू गो टू रसिया और वहां पे साइबेरिया में डिटेन किया था, तो इसने उसकी जान बचाई। अदरवाइज अगर ये डिक्लेयर कर देता कि हाँ नहीं मरे हैं, ये है वो है, तो बिना मतलब फिर स्टालिन को देना पड़ता उसको, क्योंकि 1945 में शायद वो बना था ना, यूएनओ बना था। बाद में जितने भी ट्रायल हुए हैं सारे के सारे बाद में हुए हैं ना, 1945 के बाद ही हुए हैं ना, टोक्यो ट्रायल हुआ था ना बाद में।
जी
तो अगर ये बोल देते कि हाँ सुभाष जिंदा है तो सुभाष आल्सो वुड हैव बीन ट्राइड इन टोक्यो ट्रायल।
हाँ, डेफिनेटली विदाउट एनी डाउट।
तो इसीलिए मतलब मैं यहाँ पे बोलता हूँ कि कुछ भी हो, आजाद वो सुभाष चंद्र बोस को मरा डिक्लेयर करके सुभाष की लाइफ के लिए अच्छा ही किया है गवर्नमेंट ने। 1950 तक तो थे ये चुतिया लोग यहाँ पर, माउंटबेटन एंड ऑल।
नहीं, वो तो ठीक है दादा, हमें देना क्यों पड़ता?
क्यों? बिकॉज ही वाज अ वॉर क्रिमिनल।
अरे कलकत्ता पुलिस हेडक्वार्टर्स में, सीआईडी में, सब में वही चीज लिखा हुआ है। बाद में इरेज किया गया 2 साल पहले।
ही वाज डिक्लेयर्ड एज वॉर क्रिमिनल बाय ब्रिटिश ना।
हर जगह लिखा हुआ है, हर एक रिकॉर्ड में वॉर क्रिमिनल
हाँ, तब
किया हुआ है।
अगर जो है यूएन में वहाँ इन्होंने ये काम कर दिया तो उस केस में तो ठीक है, ऐसे सिनेरियो में तो ठीक है उनको
अरे
जो है
आपके देश में
डिक्लेयर
वॉर
करना।
क्रिमिनल लिखा हुआ है ना, कोई हटा नहीं रहा है उसको।
तो मैं वही तो बोल रहा हूँ प्रदीप,
करना ही है।
टोक्यो ट्रायल तो बाद में हुआ ना, 1945 में यूएन बना तो उन्होंने बोला ठीक है टोक्यो में ट्रायल होना चाहिए। तो जितने भी जापान के जितने भी मिनिस्टर थे, राजा को भी उंगली की थी उन लोगों ने, सबको वो किया था, काफी लोगों ने ये किया। और उसमें जो हमारा यहाँ से जो पाल साहब गए थे उनका ये था कि सिंस ही वाज सपोर्टिंग सुभाष दैट्स व्हाई ही हैज गिवन अ डिसेंटिंग वर्डिक्ट।
हाँ हाँ एग्जैक्टली सर।
मैं यहाँ पर ये बोलना चाह रहा हूँ कि बाय saying this, by doing this, government of India has saved the life of Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose.
नहीं नहीं, इस सिनेरियो में तो मैं कह रहा हूँ ठीक है ये, मैं तो अदरवाइज की
क्योंकि
बात
वो
कर रहा हूँ। अगर ऐसा नहीं है
कभी भी डिक्लेयर करते, पक्की बात है गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया को उसको देना ही पड़ता, बिकॉज वी वर कॉमनवेल्थ कंट्री ना, वी वर अंडर द क्वीन।
ब्लंडर 113 नेहरू एंड नेताजी स्टोलन वॉर चेस्ट, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है सर। नो फ्रीडम फाइटर could raise as much amount as Netaji Subhash did. He appealed to the patriotism of an estimated 2 million Indians in the erstwhile British colonies conquered by his Japanese allies for donations to finance his government in exile and the Indian National Army. Netaji's personality, his emotive speeches, and his unswerving commitment to Indian independence moved the diaspora. Numerous housewives gave away their gold in the cause of freedom. Reportedly, one Habib Syed gifted all his property of over a crore of rupees, and B.K. Nadar, a Rangoon-based businessman and an INA funder, deposited 42 crores and 2,800 gold coins to the Azad Hind Bank. After Rangoon, where Azad Hind Bank was headquartered, fell to the Allies in 1945, Netaji retreated to Bangkok on 24th of September 1945, carrying with him all the treasury, including gold bars and ornaments in steel boxes. Japan surrendered to the Allied powers on 15th of August 1945, and 40,000 strong INA followed suit. On 18th of August 1945, Netaji boarded a Japanese bomber in Saigon bound for Manchuria, carrying the INA treasure, along with his aide Habibur Rahman. The plane reportedly crashed in Taiwan. The retrieved treasure from the crash was handed over by the Japanese army to S.A. Iyer and M. Rama Murthy of the third of the III, Indian Independence League, which had come under Netaji at Tokyo. Local Indians in Tokyo suspected that Ramamurthy and S.A. Iyer had jointly defalcated the INA treasure. There was enough circumstantial evidence. Inexplicably, India did nothing to get back the treasure, and rather than setting up an inquiry or hauling up Murthy and Iyer, the government absorbed Iyer as a director of publicity with the Bombay state, while Murthy led an affluent lifestyle in Tokyo, in sharp contrast to the devastation all around. Sir Benegal Ramarao, the first head of the Indian liaison mission in Tokyo, wrote to the Ministry of External Affairs headed by Prime Minister Nehru himself in India on 4th of December 1947, alleging that the INA treasure had been embezzled by Murthy. Strangely, the Ministry of External Affairs responded it could not be interested in the INA funds. It seems it wasn't just a case of indifference, it was much more than that. K.K. Chetur, who headed the Tokyo Mission Embassy during 1951-52, took up the matter of misappropriation of the INA treasure vigorously. Incidentally, Jaya Jaitley is Chetur's daughter. He has penned an excellent, worth-reading article, Nehru Snoop, Truth Behind Netaji Files in the Connection. In response, the government sent S.A. Iyer on a secret mission to Tokyo. He advised
एक मिनट दादा एक मिनट Who is this Jaya Jaitley?
Chetur, K.K. Chetur,
जय
who
जेटली
headed the
वो जो गर्लफ्रेंड थी अपना जॉर्ज फर्नांडिस की, वही है वो.
जी,
In response to the government sent S.A. Iyer on a secret mission to Tokyo, he advised collection of the retrieved treasury from
he advised collection of the retrieved treasure for Murthy, saying it was in his safe custody. Chetur suspected Iyer Murthy collusion in returning part amount just to close the matter. He recommended to the government a thorough probe in the matter on 22nd of June 1951, but nothing came of it. The Indian embassy collected whatever there was at Murthy's residence as the INA treasure in October 1951. The same was secretly brought into India from Japan and was also inspected by Nehru, who reportedly made a snide comment, "Poor show." Nehru quoted from Iyer's report in the parliament in 1952, affirming Netaji's death in an air crash in Taipei. Iyer was later appointed advisor, integrated publicity program for the 5-year plan. R.D. Sathe, an under-secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, wrote a 2-page secret note on the 1st of November 1951 titled INA Treasures and Their Handling by Messrs. Iyer and Ramamurthy, pointing out the circumstances of the mysterious disappearance of the massive INA treasure and the highly suspicious role of Iyer-Murthy duo and the token return of a paltry portion from it that raised even more questions. Sathe's note was signed by Jawaharlal Nehru on 5th of November 1951 in token of having read it, but like the earlier notes of Rao and Chetur, Sathe's note too was just filed away by the Nehru government. However, the matter refused to die. The Indian ambassador in Tokyo, A.K. Dar, sent a 4-page secret note to the Ministry of External Affairs in 1955, advocating a public inquiry into the matter of the disappearance of the INA treasure. He opined that even if the government was not able to get the treasure back, at least the culprits or the likely culprits would be known. He further said that the government's 10-year-long silence in the matter had not only helped the guilty party escape, but had done injustice to the great work and sacrifice of Netaji. Even the Shah Nawaz Committee, set up in 1956 to probe Netaji's disappearance, had recommended an inquiry into all the assets of Netaji's government in exile, including the INA treasure. Yet Nehru did nothing, and that's baffling. It was not a small amount. The total treasure, had it been recovered, would have been worth several hundred crores of rupees today. Was Nehru's government protecting the embezzlers? Why did Nehru's government accommodate a suspect embezzler, S.A. Iyer, in the government service and even depute him on a secret mission as mentioned above? Was Iyer's report confirming death of Netaji a quid pro quo? Was Netaji afraid of Iyer-Murthy, afraid that the Iyer-Murthy duo may spill the beans on the alleged fiction of Netaji's death in the air crash if they were hauled up? Anuj Dar's book on the subject, India's Biggest Cover-Up, is worth reading.
Shame, 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 shame.
पर मुझे तो यही लगता है कि वो पार्शियल गोल्ड जो वापस आ गया था ना, इसका कोई रिकॉर्ड नहीं है अभी तक गवर्नमेंट के पास. तो कौन खा गया आप समझ लीजिए.
यही मार गया होगा और क्या.
और क्या.
और उसको बोला होगा चुप रहे, तेरे को भी कुछ हिस्सा दे देता हूँ, तेरे को पोस्ट दे देता हूँ, आराम से बैठा रहे शांति से.
Blunder 114. Gross.
इसे कह देना दादा माले गनीमत, लूट में
सही
सबका
बात है
हिस्सा है।
मोहम्मद साहब का
बेशरम
हिस्सा ज्यादा
बेशरम
20%.
really. क्या बात है। We are ashamed of ourselves that we had
We have had such leaders.
such crooked leader as prime minister यार, क्या मतलब है।
Blunder 114. Gross ill treatment of the INA. The Indian National Army or the Azad Hind Fauj was an armed force formed by Indian nationalists under the leadership of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose in Southeast Asia during World War II to secure Indian independence. Jai Hind was coined by Netaji and later adopted by the Government of India and the Indian Armed Forces. There are reasonable grounds to believe that Netaji Subhash Bose's INA military onslaught on the British and the INA Red Fort trials of 1945-46 and its consequences, mutinies in the armed forces, were a major factor in the British decision to quit India, and not the Quit India movement, which had petered off in 1942 in a few months of Congress. Yet Nehru and Congress had all through opposed Subhash and INA. A lot is made of Nehru's donning his lawyer's robes to fight for INA soldiers in their trial by the British in 1945. The reality is that elections were imminent, and the INA and Bose being the people's favorites, Congress and Nehru wanted to get cheap popularity by projecting themselves as pro-INA, says Anuj Dhar in India's biggest cover-up. Captain Badwa reported that the Congress leaders' turnaround had little to do with any love for the ousted former President Bose or the people who fought under his command. He, Asif Ali, Congress Working Committee member, traveled across India and discovered that people were overwhelmingly in support of the INA. This inflamed feeling forced Congress to take the line it did. Badwar said Ali was positive as and when Congress came to power, they would have no hesitation in removing all INA from the services and even in putting some of them to trial. The top Congress leadership duplicitous disapproval of Bose and the INA was exposed by numerous pre-1947 statements made by its leaders, especially Nehru. Strangely but expectedly, while Nehru made a big show of being a part of the Defense Committee to defend the INA veterans, Colonel Prem Sehgal, Colonel Gurbaksh Singh Dhillon, and Major General Shah Nawaz Khan, for the sake of votes in the ensuing elections in the Red Fort trials of 1945-46 after independence, Nehru as PM refused to reinstate them in the army. Hypocrisy unlimited. ये भदवार का नाम बता रहा है ना सर, आपका कोलावा में भदवार पार्क है ना,
हाँ
एक जगह जहाँ से
वही ना
ये
जहाँ
लोग
पर ये बॉम्बे
हाँ
के जो
घुसा था टेररिस्ट लोग,
मुंबई वाले टेररिस्ट जहाँ पर लैंड हुए थे।
हाँ हाँ हाँ, इन्हीं के नाम पे बना हुआ है. As expected from Nehru and the Congress, rather than honoring and rewarding them, the INA veterans were debarred from the Indian Army by the government of independent India. Why? Because that was the way the British and Mountbatten wanted, as INA soldiers had fought against them, and Nehru, being an Anglophile and a chela of his Guru Mountbatten, faithfully carried out the British bidding. Reportedly, Mountbatten, a supreme Allied commander of Southeast Asia then, even went to the extent of dynamiting the INA memorial in Singapore in 1945. ये किसी को मालूम था सर? Dynamiting the INA memorial in Singapore in 1945. The above.
वही इसी लॉजिक पे मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि हैड गवर्नमेंट डिक्लेयर्ड एट दैट टाइम और कांग्रेस डिक्लेयर कि हाँ ने वो जिंदा है सुभाष, तो ये मरवा देता उसको
हाँ
माउंटबेटन।
हाँ हाँ, बिल्कुल सर. The above was in sharp contrast to Jinnah, who had inducted Muslim INA soldiers into the Pakistani army. अभी भी है बहुत लोग, मतलब
अरे
elderly
वही
लोग
लोग
हैं.
तो कश्मीर में घुसे थे आईएनए वाले।
जी, correct sir, correct. The INA personnel remained ineligible for the freedom fighters pension till 1972. Captain Ram Singh Thakur, 1914 to 2002, was an INS soldier of Nepali origin. He was also a musician and a composer. His famous patriotic compositions include कदम कदम बढ़ाया जा, खुशी के गीत गाए जा, ये जिंदगी है कौम की तो कौम पे लुटाया जा, and सब सुख चैन. His final years were difficult. He was also initially denied the status of a freedom fighter by the government. ये है हमारी सरकार.
प्रदीप
Blunder
तुम शेयर करो
116.
डॉक्यूमेंट, मुझे बाहर जाना है.
Blunder 115. Ill treatment of Netaji Bose. Apart from dragging its feet in
दादा 2
instituting
मिनट और बस.
an inquiry. अच्छा, आप ये चेंज कर दोगे इसको, अपने उस पर कर दोगे.
मुझे बाहर
प्रदीप
जाना है,
भाई.
क्योंकि लोग आ गए ना बाहर.
प्रदीप भाई,
चलो खत्म करो, देखते हैं क्या
जी.
करते हैं.
Apart from dragging its feet in instituting an inquiry into Netaji's death, manipulating the inquiry report, being hostile to INA, and not recognizing Netaji for Bharat Ratna, Nehru's government had been so hostile that in 1947 it refused to put up Netaji's portrait in the Parliament House. In a confidential memo dated 11th of February 1949, under the signature of Major General P.N. Khanduri, the government recommended the photo of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose be not displayed at prominent places, unit lines, canteens, quarter guards, or recreation rooms. लेकिन जिन्ना का फोटो लगना चाहिए. By burying India's true national freedom hero in the pages of history, Nehru, the Congress, and the eminent Marxist, Nehruvi, and Sarkari historians demonstrated unpardonable ingratitude. The book Judgment, No Air Crash, No Death, co-authored by Lieutenant Manvati Arya of the Rani Jhansi Regiment of the erstwhile INA, details how Nehru had cold-shouldered all attempts at unearthing the truth behind Netaji Subhash's death, and how the Nehru government left no stone unturned to banish all records of contributions of, of Netaji. In a book, Lieutenant Manvati Arya says that during a talks in All India Radio, she was briefed by a program producers without fail about the national policy against any reference to the INA, including the name of Netaji.
क्या बात है.
This is from the foreword of S. Nijlingappa to the book Inside Story of Sardar Patel, the Diary of Maniben
दादा
Patel,
एक मिनट,
1936-50.
मैं शेयर कर देता हूँ अब. ठीक
एक
है.
मिनट इसको खत्म कर देता हूँ. Strangely, however, while the collected works of many other leaders, notably Nehru and Gandhi, have been published by the government since independence, the collected or selected works of two foremost leaders, namely Sardar Patel and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, were never taken up by any official agency. अब आ जाइए.
उफ उफ.
हाँ दादा, अब जो है मैं प्रेजेंट कर
116
देता
से
हूँ.
मैं पढ़ता हूँ.
So depressing it is. So depressing.
ये सब सबको मालूम ही नहीं था ये सब चीज.
Full screen करो इसको. Full screen
Blunder
करो.
116. Ill treatment of Bhagat Singh and Azad. Despite popular requests to make sparing the life of Shahid Bhagat Singh and others a condition in the ongoing negotiations between Gandhi and the Viceroy Irwin, the Gandhi-Irwin Pact signed on 5th of March 1931 remained silent on the matter, and Gandhi and the Congress under Nehru as president did effectively precious little to save the braves. Revolutionary Sukhdev, who had not pleaded for himself and his colleagues, wrote an open letter to Gandhi in March 1931 after the Gandhi-Irwin Pact. Since you have compromised Gandhi-Irwin Pact, you have called off your movement and consequently all of your prisoners have been released. But what about the revolutionary prisoners? Dozens of Ghadar party prisoners imprisoned since 1915 are still rotting in jails in spite of having undergone the full terms of the imprisonment Scores of martial law prisoners are still buried in these living tombs, and so are dozens of Babbar Akali prisoners. Devgarh, Kakori, Machua Bazar, and Lahore conspiracy case prisoners are amongst these numerous still locked behind bars. More than half a dozen conspiracy trials are going on at Lahore, Delhi, Chittagong, Bombay, Calcutta, and elsewhere. Dozens of revolutionaries are absconding, and amongst them are many females. More than half a dozen prisoners are actually waiting for their executions. What about all these people? The three Lahore conspiracy case condemned prisoners, Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev, and Rajguru, who have luckily come into prominence and who have acquired enormous public sympathy, do not form the bulk of the revolutionary party. The above letter, थोड़ा नीचे कीजिए ना. The above letter had no effect on Gandhi. The British India Viceroy, Lord Irwin, recorded in his notes dated 19th of March 1931. While returning, Gandhiji asked me if he could talk about the cause of Bhagat Singh because newspapers had come out with the news of his slated hanging on 24th of March. It would be a very unfortunate day because on that day the new president of the Congress had to reach Karachi and there would be a lot of hot discussion. I explained to him that I had given a very careful thought to it, but I did not find any basis to convince myself to commute the sentence. It appeared to he found my reasoning weighty. From the above, it appears Gandhi was bothered more about the embarrassment that would be faced by the Congress with Bhagat Singh's hanging than by the hanging itself. The British justice system could allow the British mass murderer of Jallianwala Bagh to get away scot-free, and the British could even generously reward him for that brutality. But people like Bhagat Singh, who protested against those brutal acts, deserved to be hanged, and Gandhi's abstruse artifact was it deliberately abstruse to allow for self-serving flexibility of non-violence, was comfortable with such a position. Gandhi wrote in Young India the following after Bhagat Singh's martyrdom: "This mad worship of Bhagat Singh has done and is doing incalculable harm to the country. Caution has been thrown to the winds, and the deed of murder is being worshipped as if it was worthy of emulation. The result is brigandage उठाइए थोड़ा सा and degradation." क्या लिख रहा है देखिए भगत सिंह के बारे में गांधी. Chandrashekhar Azad had met Nehru secretly at Nehru's residence, Anand Bhavan at Allahabad, in February 1931 to know if Gandhi and the Congress would do something in the ongoing Gandhi-Irwin talks to save Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, and Sukhdev from the gallows, rather than doing what Nehru should have. What Nehru wrote about his meeting with Chandrashekhar Azad in his autobiography is not just disappointing, it is disturbing. The casual, disrespectful way he wrote about Chandrashekhar Azad is shocking. Here are some extracts. I remember a curious incident about that time which gave me an insight into the mind of the terrorist group. That is how he calls them. Not freedom fighters, but terrorists in India. A stranger came to see me at our house, and I was told that he was Chandrashekhar Azad, even though Azad was famous by then, and there is no way Nehru wouldn't have known him. He had been induced to visit me because of the general expectation, owing to our release, that some negotiations between the government and the Congress were likely. He wanted to know if, in case of a settlement, this group of people would have any peace? Would they still be considered and treated as outlaws, hunted from one place to another, to one place to place, with a price on their heads and the prospect of the gallows even before them? Would people like Azad plead like this? Chandrashekhar Azad had shot himself with his last bullet at the Alfred Park in Allahabad on 27th of February 1931 after he was surrounded and had valiantly defended himself and his colleague. An informer had tipped the police. Incidentally, as described above, Azad had met Nehru earlier at Anand Bhavan. Blunder 117. Ill treatment of Veer Savarkar.
दादा
Savarkar's, हाँ,
ब्रेक लो,
जी,
ठीक है.
जी.
Blunders 117. Ill treatment of Veer Savarkar. Savarkar's case is unique, shocking, and painful for all patriots and well-meaning people. He suffered the most and brutally in the British jails, Kalapani. As if that was not enough, independent India under Nehru again threw him into jail by framing a false case and defamed him. What did Savarkar get for all his sacrifices? Humiliation. It was doubtly humiliating because humiliation was inflicted not only by the British but by independent India, that too by framing false cases against him. What could be worse? The Gandhian leaders who suffered the least in the British jails, Blunder 13, leveraged all their sacrifices to grab power and and PAF, PAF, PAF post-independence. But people like Savarkar who gave their all and who were far from and who were far
Erudite.
more yeah and who were far more erudite while wise and capable than most of the Gandhians were humiliated, defamed, ignored, and forgotten. Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, 1883 to 1966, that is Swatantrata Swatan, Swatantra Veer Savarkar, was a freedom fighter, poet, writer, playwright, forceful orator, nationalist, atheist, and reformer.
Rationalist.
Rationalist, orator, rationalist, atheist, and reformer, who vigorously advocated end of Hindu caste system and strongly disapproved of orthodox Hindu beliefs and practices, but built the
He built,
Patit
he
Pavan.
built, he built.
He built Patit Pavan Mandir in Ratnagiri, open to the all, including Dalits. A section of Orthodox Brahmins of Maharashtra opposed his reform, but he earned praise and respect from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Savarkar was a multi-talented personality who had also coined the terms that have been in common usage since. Chitrapat, Doordarshan, Nirdeshak, Sampadak, Mahapaur, Parshad, etc. Savarkar became a revolutionary while a student in India and England. In London, he was associated with the India House, set up by the revolutionary Shyama Krishna Verma. He founded Abhinav Bharat Society and the Free India Society. He also brought out publications espousing the case of complete independence of India by revolutionary.
Cause,
जी दादा?
cause, espousing the cause.
Espousing the cause of complete independence of India by revolutionary means. His famous book 1857, First War of Independence, had so much rattled the British that they put a ban on it, confiscating all its copies within 6 months of its release. Arrested in 1910 for his revolutionary activities, darling attempt. He made a daring attempt
Daring attempt.
He made a daring attempt to escape while being transported from
Marseille,
Marseilles,
Marseille,
Mars,
France. इसका
Marseilles,
स्पेलिंग वैसा है, मार्सिये है,
Marseilles, France,
फ्रांस.
with constable waiting outside. Savarkar entered the toilet, broke the window, wriggled out somehow, and jumped into the ocean from a sailing ship to swim his way to Marcia's port. His friends, including Madame Bhikaji Kama, were supposed to pick him up there, but they were late by a few minutes, and the French police caught him and returned him to the British cops, chained and under stricter watch. He was sentenced to 2 life terms of imprisonment, totaling 50 years. He was imprisoned in the cellular jail in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, that is Kalapani, and treated cruelly, cruelly and inhumanly, in sharp contrast to the VIP treatment accorded to Gandhi, Nehru, and the top Gandhians in jails. He must have been the first poet in the world to have been deprived of pen and paper in a jail, while Nehru wrote all his books in jails, having been provided with liberal and conductive facilities by the British jailers.
Conducive.
While Nehru wrote all his books in jail, having been provided the liberal and conducive facilities by the British jailers. Savarkar improvised and used
Impoverish.
forms and ways.
Impoverish. Improvise.
Ah,
Sorry, correct,
sorry.
correct. ठीक है, I'm very
Savarkar,
sorry. Improvise.
Savarkar improvised and used
Use.
thorns and nails to compose his writings on prison walls. Notably, V.D. Savarkar's elder brother, Baba Rao Savarkar, was also a revolutionary and was lodged in the cellular jail in Kalapani. His younger brother too was a revolutionary. It was a family of brave patriots and revolutionaries. Shahid Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, and Chandrashekhar Azad were admirers of the Savarkar family and drew inspiration from them. Revolutionary Madan Lal Dhingra, who shot Sir Willie in London in 1909 after a failed assassination attempt on the Viceroy Lord Curzon, was keen follower of Savarkar. Savarkar was elected president of the Hindu Mahasabha in 1937 and served in that post till 1943. After the Muslim League's Pakistan Revolution of 1940, Savarkar could foresee the problems ahead for Hindus in India. He wanted Hindus to be militarily well equipped. Therefore, rather than the Quit India 1942, Savarkar gave a call to the Hindus to take advantage of the opportunity of getting military trained by joining
Militarily.
the army in the British war effort
Militarily.
in
Militarily trained. Militarily trained.
militarily trained by joining the army in the British war effort in World War II. Fortunately, a very large number of Hindus responded to Savarkar's call and joined the British army, finally making it Hindu majority from its earlier position of Muslim majority. That helped tremendously after partition and independence, providing a large army to India, the Muslims in the army having mostly opted for Pakistan.
ये
Unlike
बहुत
Gandhi and
इम्पोर्टेंट
Nehru,
है, ये जगह बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है, देखिए
हाँ,
ये
काफी बड़ा
जगह
चंक
बहुत,
था
हाँ,
मुस्लिम आर्मी का जो गया है, 1/3 आप समझ लो,
नहीं,
वो भी चेंज
गया
होने
है।
के बाद,
और
वरना तो
हिंदू
ये
लोग ज्वाइन करने लगे ना, उनके मतलब ये
कॉल पे।
सावरकर जी के चलते हिंदू लोग ज्यादा फिर ज्वाइन करने लगे।
हाँ, सवरकर जी के आह्वान पे हिंदुओं ने ज्वाइन करी आर्मी, और जो माइनॉरिटी में थे वो आर्मी में मेजॉरिटी में पहुंच गए। Unlike Gandhi and Nehru, Savarkar knew what a country of the size of India needed to defend itself. Dr. Ziauddin Ahmed, the then VC of AMU, had indeed raised an alarm on increasing number of Hindus enlisting in the armed forces, thereby reducing the proportion of Muslims. But Savarkar's
But for
whirlwind,
but for
Savarkar's ये
but for Savarkar's whirlwind recruitment drive during
whirlwind
World War II.
Whirlwind recruitment drive during World War II. Pakistan, after partition, should have had 60 to 70% of the soldiers, enough to overwhelm India in the border areas in a conflict. This depth to Savarkar's This debt to Savarkar is sadly unacknowledged. Quit India. Quit India, which Savarkar opposed, fetched nothing for India or the Congress in real terms, fizzled out in 2 months and proved counterproductive. For details, please check Blunder
गलत
12.
है वो छोड़ दी
जी दादा?
वो ब्रैकेट वाला छोड़ दी डिटेल एंड द बुक
हाँ, book. And book Sardar Patel, the best PM India never had, available on Amazon. While it drove the British to be fiercely anti-India, anti-Hindu, and anti-Congress, it made them even more pro-Muslim League, and pro-Pakistan, which ultimately resulted in the strategy of partition. Hindu Mahasabha,
ट्रेजेडी
in the tragedy of partition. Hindu Mahasabha activists protested Gandhi holding talks with Jinnah in 1944, denounced it as appeasement. Savarkar considered Gandhi a knave leader,
नाइव लीडर एमएससी
a naive, a naive leader, and a sissy. तो sissy का मतलब क्या है?
मतलब औरत जैसे लड़की जैसे
अच्छा,
डरपोक सा।
हाँ मतलब
हाँ वो ज्यादा ठीक है।
बकलिंडी टाइप
नहीं
का।
नहीं, विमेन को आप बता दादा, विमेन तो हमारी तो बड़ी बहादुर है हमारी विमेन तो। ये तो विमेन आपके पीछे पड़ जाएगी दादा।
ये बकलंडी टाइप का था. He stated that although Gandhi babbled compassion and forgiveness, he has a very narrow and immature head. बाल नहीं थे ना. Savarkar was very ahead of Gandhi Nehru on many accounts. Gandhi, Nehru, and the Congress gave a call for complete independence for India very late at the end of 1929. What Savarkar had called for way back in 1900. Bonfire of foreign clothes, on which the Gandhians claim copyright, was performed much earlier by Savarkar in 1905, later copied by Gandhi. Upon creation of Pakistan, Savarkar had rightly predicted, till a nation based on religious fascism exists beside India, she won't ever be
फैनेटिसिज्म
able
रिलीजियस
fanaticism.
फैसिज्म में फैनेटिसिज्म
Fanaticism. Till a nation based on religious fanaticism exists beside India, she won't ever be able to live in peace. In the 1930s and later, when the Muslims of East Bengal, now Bangladesh, began migrating to Brahmaputra Valley in Assam for livelihood, poor poo-pooing, poo-pooing the grave warnings of sane quarters, pseudo-secular na- naive, Nehru made an irresponsible statement. Nature abhors vacuum, meaning where there is an open space, how can one prevent people from settling there? अरे भाई इसके सर पे बाल नहीं थे तो उगे क्यों नहीं फिर? उसको भी नेचर को जो है ऑक्यूपाई कर लेना चाहिए था. Savarkar responded with his mastery prediction. Nature also harbors poisonous gas. The migration of such large numbers of Muslims in Assam threatened not just the local culture but would also prove to be a national security problem for India on its northeast frontier. सही कहा था, आज तक चल रही है वो. Savarkar in a statement on 19th December, अच्छा मैं इसको वो कर दूं कि जब मुस्लिम माइग्रेशन वहाँ हो रही थी नॉर्थ ईस्ट में, तो सवरकर जी ने कहा था कि ये जो है इंडिया के लिए सिक्योरिटी प्रॉब्लम बनेगी जाके, और वही हो रहा है आज. Savarkar, in a statement on 19 December 1947, heartily supported an independent Jewish state and demanded restoration of the Jews their entire historical Holy Land and fatherland of Palestine, terming it as an appeasement to Muslims by Nehru. He expressed regret at India's vote against the creation of the Jewish state at the UN, Blunder 54. Nothing China's invasion of Noting China's invasion of Tibet in 1950 and Nehru's weak-kneed policy, Savarkar has predicted in 1954 itself after what China has done to Tibet, kowtowing to the Chinese,
Kowtowing. Bowing before the Chinese. Kowtowing.
kowtowing to the
Kowtowing.
Chinese would whet its appetite. I won't be surprised if China feels emboldened to swallow Indian
Emboldened.
land, eh?
Emboldened.
emboldened to swallow Indian land, tempted by India's weak-kneed approach. Savarkar became a fierce critic of Indian National Congress. No wonder an all-out attempt was made to to falsely,
Falsely.
im- to falsely implicate him in the Gandhi murder case. Manohar Manohar Malgaonkar, after the extensive research published The Man Who Killed Gandhi in 1977, he does not point he does not point to any guilt on Savarkar's part. Here is the extract from the author's introduction in the book. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar's secret assurance to Mr. L.B. Bhopatkar that his client, Mr. V.D. Savarkar, has been implicated as a murder suspect on
On
flimsiest
the
grounds.
on the flimsiest grounds.
Flimsiest grounds. Then again, certain other pertinent details such as the doctoring of a confession by a magistrate whose duty it was only to record what was said only came out in later years. Malgaonkar's book also states, why were the police so anxious to implicate Savarkar? Was it merely that, having failed in their proper function to arrest Nathuram before he killed Gandhi, they were making a bid to save face by raising the bogey of some sensational plot which involved a big leader who providentially happened to be in bad order with the government of the day? Or was that government itself or some powerful group in it using the police agency to destroy a rival political organization or at least to destroy a fiercely uncompromising opposition stalwart? stalwart? Or again, was the whole thing a manifestation of some form of phobia particular to India, peculiar to India,
आराम से
religious, हाँ, or again, was the whole thing a manifestation of some form of phobia peculiar to India, religious, racial, linguistic, or provincial, that made Savarkar a natural target for the venom of some section of society? Savarkar being made and accused in the Gandhi murder trial may well have been an act of political vendetta. Of course, Badge, a prover who implicated Savarkar on his track record, is a slippery character and not to be relied upon. But he was most insistent to me that he had been forced to tell lies and that his pardon and future stipend by the police department in Bombay depend upon his backing of
depended,
official depend
depended,
on backing.
depended, depended
uh, Bombay dependent upon his backing
on his
of
backing.
official version of the case, and in particular that he never saw Savarkar talking to Apte and never heard him telling him यशस्वी होना
हो या
हो या
हो या मराठी में है ये यशस्वी हो
यशस्वी
या
हो या ठीक
मतलब
है
तुम यशस्वी हो आशीर्वाद
ठीक
नहीं दे सकते इस तरह से
डॉक्टर बी आर
यशस्वी भव
अम्बेडकर हाँ हाँ वही वाला है यशस्वी बाबा डॉक्टर बी आर अम्बेडकर confided to Bhopatkar, Savarkar's lawyer. There is no real charge against our client. Quite worthless evidence has been conco- uh, concocted. Concocted. ऐसे ही है ना concocted.
हाँ हाँ कंकॉक्टेड
Several members of the cabinet were strongly against it, but to no avail, Even Sardar Patel could not go against these orders. But take it from me, there is just no case. You will win. It seems Nehru leveraged the emotions against the assassination of Gandhi to fix Savarkar and ensured that no one came in the way, not even senior cabinet colleagues. They must have been very, they must have been very, lest they be accused or defamed of trying to protect an accomplice in
Accomplice.
Gandhi assassination. Protect and protect an
Accomplice.
accomplice,
Accomplice. Accomplice.
accomplice in Gandhi assassination. Malgaonkars further wrote, he, Savarkar, was 64 years old and had been ailing for a year or more. He was detained on 6 February 1948 and remained in prison for the whole of the year which the investigation and the trial took. He was adjudged not guilty on 10th February 1949. The man who had undergone 26 years of imprisonment or detention under the British for his part in India's struggle for freedom was thus slung back into jail for another year the moment that freedom came. Appa Kaskar, bodyguard of Veer Savarkar, was arrested by the police and tortured brutally. Nails of his hands and toes were pulled out to force his evidence against Savarkar. It has been reported that in the wake of assassination of Gandhi and the rumors that got floated, a mob went on a rampage against Savarkar in Mumbai. Yet the state government, then under the Congress, made no arrangements to ensure security for Savarkar, who was bedridden, and his kin. His family members and friends had to somehow defend his house using sticks when the mob attacked it. In the process, his younger brother, Dr. Narayan Rao Savarkar, also a freedom fighter, was seriously injured and later
Succumb.
succumbed,
Succumb.
succumbed, succumbed to his injuries.
मतलब मर गए वो.
सावरकर was arrested on 5th February. दादा ये गांधी के चक्कर में ये जो है यही कांग्रेसियों ने ये सारा ड्रामा किया था. ये दंगे करने में बहुत ज्यादा मतलब जो है इन्वॉल्व रहते हैं. हाँ. Savarkar was arrested. Savarkar was arrested on 5th February 1948, but till 23 March, yani 23rd March, for 46 days, he was not allowed to meet his wife or his only son. The democratic and freedom-loving cultured Nehru tried to destroy all those who were opposed to him. Although the court acquitted Savarkar, he was so defamed that he could not rise again. After his acquittal, Savarkar was arrested by the government for making militant Hindu nationalist speeches. He was released after agreeing to give up political activities. What then was the difference between the British India and Nehru's independent India? Nehru has forbidden the Congress members to participate in any public function honoring Savarkar and has refused to share the stage with him during the uh, cent-
Centenary.
centenary celebrations of India's first war of independence, which was called so for the first time by none other than Savarkar in his book that was banned by British. Savarkar renounced medicines, food and water with effect from 1st February 1966, terming it as an atma,
आत्मार्पण. Thomas Sankara is
atma,
dead.
atmapan,
आत्मार्पण. आत्मार्पण.
atmapan, fast until death. He died on 26 February 1966. Not a single minister from Maharashtra or central cabinet showed up at the cremation ground to pay homage to Savarkar. The Speaker of the Parliament turned down a request that it may pay homage to Savarkar. जिस तरीके के ज़्यादा इनके काम हैं, इनकी
हाँ,
सबकी समाधियों को टॉयलेट बना देना चाहिए. to give them
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
better, इनका ट्रीटमेंट ऐसे ही होना चाहिए। और कांग्रेसियों को जिस तरीके से इन्होंने करा है, इसी तरीके से एक एक वर्कर को, ताकि ये जो है अपनी जो आत्माएं बेचे बैठे हुए हैं ना, सुअर कहीं के।
अरे आपका तो कर्नाटक के लोग तो जिता दिए उनको।
अब क्या करे, साला सुअरों की जमात बन गई है। आफ्टर द डेथ ऑफ नेहरू Lal Bahadur Shastri as PM approved payment of monthly pensions to Sawarkar like it was done for other। देखिए, ये लाल बहादुर शास्त्री ये काम कर रहे हैं जो नेहरू
जब
को
तक
करना
नेहरू
चाहिए।
जिंदा थे कोई कुछ नहीं कर रहे।
अरे वो सुअर जिंदा था तभी तो नहीं कर पा रहे थे। एक सुअर के मरने के बाद तभी हो पाया ये। As PM approved after the death of Nehru, Lal Bahadur Shastri as PM approved payment of monthly pension to Savarkar like it was done for other freedom fighters. In 1970, Indira Gandhi's government issued a political stamp. In 1970, in 1970, Indira Gandhi's government issued a postal stamp in honor of Veer Savarkar. The
commemorative
commemorative blue plaque
plaque
on India House, London, fixed by the Historic Building and Monuments Commission for England reads Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, 1883 to 1966, Indian patriot and philosopher, lived here. The airport at Port Blair, the capital of Andaman and Nicobar, has since been named as Veer Savarkar International Airport. It was in February 2003, when the NDA government was in power, that the portrait of Swatantrata Veer Savarkar was put up in Central Hall of Parliament. Congress party's MPs boycotted the function without ever offering a public explanation for their disgraceful behavior. This has been demanded that Savarkar should be conferred the Bharat Ratna.
There has been a demand that Savarkar
There has been a demand that Savarkar should be conferred the Bharat Ratna
posthumously
posthumously.
मतलब मरणोपरांत।
तो ये ज्यादा ये कांग्रेसियों के जीन्स ही खराब हैं। पता नहीं ये इंटर रेशियल जो है, इंटर क्या कहते हैं उसको, दूसरी प्रजाति क्या कहते हैं, ये मुझे लग रहा है ये इस तरीके की ब्रीड है, ये जानवरों के साथ मिक्स होकर ये ब्रीड बनी है।
आज की कहाँ तक पढ़ना?
118 पे आ रहा है, ब्लंडर 118।
ये लास्ट है
क्या दादा?
ये वाला लास्ट है क्या?
21 तक जाएंगे।
जल्दी जल्दी पढ़ दूंगा
मैं, एक मिनट ये वाला कंप्लीट कर दूं, ज्यादा बड़ा
बहुत बड़ा। बोली जल्दी जल्दी पढ़ो।
ठीक है,
बहुत ज्यादा है।
हाँ, खींचना चालू करता हूँ।
मैं पढ़ूं?
ठीक है दादा, आप ले लो।
नहीं सर, आप रेस्ट लीजिए।
ब्लंडर
नहीं सर, आप रेस्ट लीजिए सर। Blunder 118, ill treatment of Sardar Patel, on how Nehru usurped the positions that should rightfully have gone to Sardar Patel. Despite those crafty usurpations that cost India dear, Nehru's machinations against Sardar Patel continued after independence. Jayaprakash Narayan, a socialist, used to be in the Nehru's camp. After independence, the socialists had been plotting to unseat Patel from his post as Home Minister. JP had commented, a man of 74, Sardar Patel, has the department of which even a man of 30 would find it difficult to bear the burden. Mridula Sarabhai, who was close to Nehru, had launched a whisper campaign for Sardar's resignation. It is difficult to believe that the campaigns of both JP and Mridula did not have the blessings of Nehru, both being close to him. Later in 1972, JP regretted his actions. Rajaji once unburdened his heart by publicly confessing to a wrong he had done to Sardar Patel. I find myself in a similar situation. The dominant feeling within me today is one of self-reproach because during his lifetime I was not merely a critic but an opponent of the great Sardar, wrote Brigadier B.N. Sharma. D. Nehru could be downright petty to others. His silent encouragement of a whispering campaign branding Patel as a fascist is too well known. After the death of Gandhi, the only impediment to Nehru's dictatorship was Patel, and Nehru did all he could to dent his position. Patel's death had removed the only brake on Nehru. Nehru and dynasty saw to it that Bharat Ratna was never awarded to Sardar Patel. When Sardar died in Mumbai, Nehru, who did not attend the funeral, advised the then President Dr. Rajendra Prasad
Very important, very important, very important.
not to attend the funeral. The reason given by him was that, as per the protocol, the president need not attend funerals of ministers. So he treated Sardar Patel as a mere minister. What arrogance! A disgraceful attitude, particularly when Sardar Patel had so selflessly supported him, even though Nehru had usurped the PM's post from him most undemocratically. But of course, Rajendra Prasad went. सरदार मन चलेगा funeral पे. Sardar was not just the deputy prime minister but was उठाना पड़ेगा सबको.
But was Rajendra Prasad colleague for many, many years in
दिख
the
नहीं रहा है
independence?
मुझे दिख नहीं रहा है.
क्या हुआ, ये हट गया क्या? मैं पढ़ूं?
पढ़िए सर.
नहीं, ये मैं इसको वो करता हूँ, शेयर करता हूँ, फिर पढ़ता हूँ. अब दिख रहा है?
जी जी जी.
हाँ दादा दिख रहा है.
Attitude,
Sardar was not
particularly
just
with
deputy PM but was Rajendra Prasad's colleague of many years in the independence struggle. Wrote Stanley Walpert. Gandhi's dream reunited Nehru and Patel. Their reconciliation not only saved Congress and India's central government from collapse, but it kept Nehru in power. Without the Sardar's strength and support, Nehru might have broken down or been forced out of high office. Vallabhbhai ran India's administration for the next 2 years before his death, while Nehru indulged mostly in foreign affairs and high Himalayan adventures. M.K.K. Nair, an IAS officer, was close to both Sardar Patel and V.P. Menon, states in his book The Story of an Era Told Without Ill Will. Incessant differences of opinion between Nehru and Patel caused Nehru to treat Patel with personal animosity. If Nehru was not above harboring personal hatred, he would not have done two things. He did on the day Patel died. He sent two orders to the Home Ministry and they arrived at V.P. Menon's desk. The first thing, that the Cadillac car that Patel used should be returned the very next morning to the Foreign Ministry. Patel died in Bombay. Nehru's second memo asked officers who wished to attend his funeral to travel at their own expense. V.P. Menon called officers of his ministry and without divulging Nehru's order, asked all those who were interested to attend the funeral. About a dozen officers wanted to. He bought their air tickets at his expense. When Nehru learnt about it, he was annoyed even more. The above was confirmed. नहीं
अच्छा,
देखिए फिर
वीपी
भी तो
मेनन ने
आदमी
ये तो अच्छा काम किया भाई, कुछ भी
नहीं,
कहो.
लेकिन अपने पैसे से एयर टिकट उस समय महंगा ही था ना, फिर भी खरीद के दिया है तो बेचारा आदमी जो है देशभक्त तो था ही ना. The above was confirmed when K. Munshi wrote, when Sardar died in Bombay, Jawaharlal issued a direction to the ministers and the secretaries not to go to Bombay to attend the funeral. Among the ministers, I was in Mathiran, Bombay at the time. So Sri N.V. Gadgil, Sri Satyanarayan Sinha, and Sri V.P. Menon disregarded the direction and attended the funeral. Jawaharlal also requested President Dr. Rajendra Prasad not to go to Bombay. It was a strange request to which Rajendra Prasad did not accede. It is hard to believe the supposedly cultured person Nehru could be so ungracious and could go to such lengths upon death of a colleague and a great national leader and freedom fighter. This is from the preface of Patel a Life by Rajmohan Gandhi. The establishment of independent India derived legitimacy and power, broadly speaking, from the exertions of three men, Gandhi, Nehru, and Patel. But while its acknowledgements are fulsome in the case of Nehru and beautiful in the case of Gandhi, they are niggardly in the case of Patel. That there's today in India to think and talk about, President Rajendra Prasad wrote in his diary on 3rd of May 1959, is very largely due to Sardar Patel's statesmanship and firm administration. Yet, added Prasad, we are apt to ignore him. Falling in 1989, the centenary of Jawaharlal's birth found expressions on 1,000 billboards, in commemorative TV serials, in festivals, and on numerous other platforms. Occurring on 31st of October 1975, the Patel centenary was, by contrast, wholly neglected by official India and by the rest of the establishment, and since then the curtain drawn on the life of one of modern India's most remarkable sons has been occasionally and partially lifted.
तब तो ये भी था ना, इमरजेंसी लगी हुई थी ना उस समय, तो अक्टूबर 31 1975।
जी
अरे देखो क्या कोइंसिडेंस है, अक्टूबर 31 1975, 1875 he was born and Indira ji was assassinated on October 31st 1984
in the capital. In the prime area, you have Rajghat for Gandhiji, Shanti Van for Nehru, Shakti Sthal for Indira Gandhi, Veer Bhumi for Rajiv Gandhi, Vijay Ghat for Shastri, Kishan Ghat for Charan Singh. Besides, many museums or memorials for the Nehru Gandhis, but no memorial either to Subhash Bose or to Sardar Patel in the capital. The next to Gandhi, these, the latter two deserve the highest respect. The residence in Delhi, where Sardar lived when he was the Deputy Prime Minister of the country, has been razed, and there is no sign that he ever lived there. Nehru's house, Teen Murti, on the other hand, has been turned into a museum. Nehru's meanness and small-mindedness can be gauged from the fact that he made no arrangements to have a portrait of Sardar Patel put up in the Central Hall of Parliament, like it was done for other prominent leaders. Apparently, he saw to it that such a portrait was not put up. He had done the same in the case of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. It was Maharaja Jivaji Rao Sindhi of Gwalior, who had since become the first Raj Pramukh of Madhya Bharat, who had since become the first Raj Pramukh of Madhya Bharat, who felt much irked by that glaring and apparently deliberate omission and presented a Sardar Patel's portrait to be put up in the Central Hall of Parliament in 1954. The unveiling ceremony was performed by President Dr. Rajendra Prasad. This is from the foreword of S. Nijlingappa to the book Inside Story of Sardar Patel, The Diary of Maniben Patel, 1936-50. Strangely, however, the collected works of many other leaders, notably Nehru and Gandhi, have been published by the government since independence, and collected or selected works of two foremost leaders, namely Sardar Patel and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, were never taken up by any official agency. It is for this reason that we constituted the Sardar Patel Society, had it registered, collected funds, and published the collected works of Sardar Patel in 15 volumes. Blunder 119. Ill treatment of Sardar Patel's daughter Maniben. Maniben Patel, the only daughter of Sardar Patel, switched to Khadi at a tender age of 16 and started working regularly at the Gandhi Ashram in Ahmedabad. Most of the garments that Sardar Patel wore in 1921 were woven out of the yarn made by Maniben. When just 17, she put all her gold bangles, earrings, and other ornaments, gold wristwatch and jewels in a bundle of cloth, and after obtaining her father's nod, deposited them in the cause of freedom at the Gandhi Ashram. Unlike Nehru's daughter Indira Gandhi, Maniben was a freedom fighter who actively participated in the non-cooperation movements. During the Bardoli Satyagraha in 1928, she, along with many other ladies, helped out in the camps. For active role in the Salt Satyagraha of 1930 and thereafter, she was arrested and imprisoned on several occasions. In January 1932, she was arrested along with Kasturba Gandhi for defying a ban on meetings in Bardoli. She was released in May 1932 but was re-arrested in July 1932 for defying a ban in Kheda and was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment, which she spent in Belgaum jail. For a role in arousing people in the villages in Rajkot, she was arrested in December 1938. Gandhi was much impressed with her work and had remarked that Maniben was showing a mettle and that he had not seen another daughter like her. During Maniben's stint in Sabarmati jail, Sardar Patel wrote to her daughter, "Look after all the other women prisoners and see that they come out braver than when they went in." Under Gandhi's selective disobedience, Maniben was arrested in December 1940 and sent to Belgaum jail. Released in May 1941, she again wished to court arrest, but Gandhi stopped her, looking to her frail health. Later, Maniben underwent prolonged imprisonment during the Quit India movement of 1942. She was arrested along with Kasturba Gandhi in August 1942 and was in detention at the Aga Khan Palace in Pune, where Gandhi was lodged. Maniben was released in March 1944, but she was re-arrested in May 1944 in Bardoli in Gujarat and was sent to Surat jail. From Surat, she was sent to Yerwada jail. The following is based on a telling episode about her described by Balraj Krishna. Sardar Patel gave up his highly remunerative legal practice when he joined Gandhi in the independence struggle. He kept no property or savings. Even after independence, when he became the deputy prime minister, he and his daughter Maniben continued with their austere life. After a massive heart attack, when Patel was convalescing at the Dehradun Circuit House, Mahavir Tyagi visited him. Incidentally, Mahavir Tyagi (1899 to 1980) was a well-known parliamentarian from Dehradun. He was in the British Indian Army and was posted in Persia when he resigned upon the Jallianwala Bagh massacre of 13th of April 1918. He was court-martialed at Quetta, capital of Balochistan, and externed from Balochistan with all his pay deposits forfeited. Returning home, Tyagi joined the freedom movement. Seeing Maniben wearing a khadi sari with a huge patch sewed over a torn portion, Mahavir Tyagi commented in good humor, "Maniben, you think yourself to be great, being the daughter of a man who has within a year established a far-flung empire by merging the numerous princely states. Not so was the empire of Rama, Krishna, or of Ashok, Akbar, or of the British. As the daughter of one who is the Sardar of the big Rajas and the Maharajas, don't you feel ashamed for wearing such a sari? If you happen to go around my town, people will take you for a beggar and offer you some money." Patel, joining in the fun, remarked, "The bazaar is full of people. By evening, she will be able to collect a good amount." Dr. Sushila Nair then intervened. "Tyagi, Maniben spends the whole day in looking after Sardar Sahib. Then she has to find time to write her diary and spin yarn on the charka. Of the yarn thus spun, clothes are stitched for Sardar Sahib, as he doesn't purchase cloth from Khadi Bhandar. When his dhotis and kurtas are torn, Maniben makes a cloth out of them." Maniben didn't get married and served her father till her death in 1950. There's a shocking episode relating to Maniben based on various sources. Mainly, I Too Had a Dream, an autobiography of Dr. Verghese Kurian of Anand Dairy fame. Sardar Patel's wife, Javerba, had expired in 1909 and he was being looked after by his daughter, Maniben, who chose not to get married. Maniben was a devoted patriot and a dedicated Congress worker who gave all to the nation and to the freedom struggle. Sardar Patel did not have any bank balances or property. Even though he was earning substantially as a very successful lawyer, once he got into the freedom movement, he gave up everything. Sardar was a very example of Gandhian simplicity. He used to say, "Bapu has told that those in politics should not hold property, and I hold none." Such were the ideals then. Contrast this with the multi-crorepati leaders of today. When Sardar Patel expired, he left nothing for his daughter. With Sardar no more, she had to vacate the house. She was left all alone to fend for herself with no money and no house. Sardar had instructed her to give a bag and a book to Nehru upon his death. After Sardar's death, which happened in Mumbai, Maniben dutifully went to Delhi, took an appointment with Nehru and met him. She handed over to him the bag and the book. It seems the book was an account book and the bag contained rupees 35 lakhs. After having done so, she waited for Nehru to express sympathy, inquire as to what she had intended doing, where she would stay, her monetary position, whether she wanted anything, and what he could do for her. But Nehru showed no interest and said nothing. After some time, she left disappointed. She returned to Ahmedabad to stay with a cousin. Neither Nehru nor the Congress party bothered about her well-being. Such was the fate of the lady who gave all to the nation, and of the daughter of a person who made India what it is today. Contrast this with the Nehru dynasty, who enjoyed all the fruits, while others made all the sacrifices. Blunder 120, ill treatment of Dr. Ambedkar. Among the leaders of pre-independence times, none could come near Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in academics and in the quality and wisdom of his writings. If he was number one, the rest started from number 11. Ambedkar was B.A. Economics and Political Science from Bombay University, M.A. Economics from Columbia University, USA, MSc Economics and Finance from London School of Economics, PhD Finance from Columbia University, Doctor of Science, Economics from London School of Economics, and Barrister of Law from Gray's in London. Compare that with the lowest second division graduation of Nehru, Nehru's only degree. After independence, Ambedkar was invited to serve as the first Law Minister of India. He was also appointed chairman of the Constitution Drafting Committee. He had remarked with pride, the Hindus wanted the Vedas, and they sent for Vyasa, who was not a caste Hindu. The Hindus wanted an epic, and they sent for Valmiki, who was an untouchable. The Hindus want a constitution, and they have sent for me. The logic, wisdom, and analysis in Dr. Ambedkar's writings is impressive, far too superior to that of Nehru. In all relevant fields, Ambedkar was far more competent and knowledgeable than Nehru. He was also much wiser and experienced, having handled important portfolios before independence. India would have immensely benefited if either Sardar Patel or Ambedkar had become India's first Prime Minister or Ambedkar had become Finance Minister. But did Nehru try to make use of Ambedkar's immense talents? No. Nehru never engaged with him. Ambedkar's towering intellectual superiority perhaps giving gave him an inferiority complex, and he avoided him. Nehru wanted only chamchas or hangers-on. Here is an extract from the resignation letter of Dr. Ambedkar from the Nehru cabinet dated the 27th of September 1951. As a result
पढ़
of
लिया
my
पहले पढ़ा इसको कितनी बार आ चुका है छोड़ दो ये पढ़ लो लास्ट में अगर आई वाज लेफ्ट आउट यहाँ से पढ़ लो अगर पढ़
I was left out. During my time, there have been many transfers of portfolios from one minister to another. I thought I might be considered for any one of them, but I've always been left out of consideration. Many ministers have been given two or three portfolios, so that they have been overburdened. Others, like me, have been wanting more work. कोई काम ही नहीं दिया हमको. It is difficult to understand what is the principle underlying the distribution of government work among ministers which the Prime Minister follows. Is it capacity? Is it trust? Is it friendship? Is it pliability? I was not even, ये mark कीजिएगा sir, is it pliability? I was not even appointed to be a member of main committees of the cabinet, such as Foreign Affairs Committee or the Defense Committee. When the Economics Affairs Committee was formed, I was expected, in view of the fact that I was primarily a student of economics and finance, to be appointed to this committee, but I was left out. Rather than having him in the parliament and in the cabinet in a post suited to his genius, Nehru campaigned against him, exerted his level best to have him defeated in the elections. In an article, A Case for Bhim Rajya, in the Outlook magazine of 20th of August 2012, the author S. Anand describes a shocking incident. Let us begin at the end with one of the worst humiliations in Ambedkar's life. Less than 3 months before his death, on September 14, 1956, exactly a month before he embraced Buddhism with 500,000 followers in Nagpur, he wrote a heartbreaking letter to Prime Minister Nehru from his 26 Alipur Road residence in Delhi. enclosing 2 copies of the comprehensive table of contents of his mnemonic opus, The Buddha and his Dhamma. Ambedkar suppressed pride and sought Nehru's help in the publication of a book he had worked on for 5 years. The cost of printing is very heavy and will come to about rupees 20,000. This is beyond my capacity and I am therefore canvassing help from all quarters. I wonder if the government of India could purchase 500 copies for distribution among the various libraries and among the many scholars whom it is inviting during the course of this year for the celebration of Buddha's 2500 years anniversary. Ambedkar
एक मिनट
perhaps
एक मिनट एक मिनट दादा 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 एक मिनट
जी, जी, जी.
on September 14 1956 exactly a month before he embraced, that means on October 14 1956 he embraced Buddhism. So if at all anything has been done to Baba Sahib Ambedkar, it was done by Nehru. Why everybody, every Sanatan Dharma follower should be held responsible for ill treatment of these both new both टिड्डा लोगों को बोलते हैं ना, related लोगों को.
जी, exactly.
जी दादा, सारा घुमा फिरा के हिंदू पर डाल देते
किसने
हैं.
किया है? पूरी जितनी भी अम्बेडकर के गुस्सा है वो तो उसके ऊपर उतार रहा है. उसके बेचारे किताबों को भी नहीं पब्लिश होने दिया उसने.
दादा डालते हमारे ऊपर है, करता कोई और है.
हाँ, देखो नीचे क्या पढ़ रहा है.
Ambedkar had perhaps gotten used to exclusion by then. The greatest exponent of Buddhism after Ashoka had ruthlessly been kept out of this Buddha Jayanti committee presided over by S. Radhakrishnan, then vice president. Worse, when Nehru replied to Ambedkar the next day, he said the sum set aside for publications related to Buddha Jayanti had been exhausted and he should approach Radhakrishnan, chairman of the commemorative committee. Nehru also offered some business advice gratuitously. I might suggest that your books might be on sale in Delhi and elsewhere at the time of Buddha Jayanti celebrations, when many people may come from abroad. I might find a good sale then. Radhakrishnan is said to have informed Ambedkar on phone about his inability to help him. This is the Vinaya.
बहुत पढ़ा लिखा आदमी था, बेवकूफ कहीं का.
This is
अरे
the
वाइस
Vinaya.
प्रेसिडेंट, तुम्हारे पास तो इतने गट्स होने चाहिए. ये भी पट्टू था, ये डरता था उससे.
Sir, ये पढ़िए ना इस जगह. This is the Vinaya of the Prime Minister and the Vice President of the day extended to the former Law Minister and Chairperson of the Drafting Committee of the Constitution. ये Vinaya. It was suggested with impertinence that Ambedkar could set up a stall, hawk copies and recover costs. Couldn't they have spared a few thousands for Ambedkar's great work when the government could spend lakhs on all kinds of sundry and selected collected works of Nehru and Gandhi that had comparatively far less value? As long as the Nehru dynasty was in power, the Ambedkar Memorial in the capital was in bad shape. Right, Neha Bhatt in an article, a fall into sear and yellow leaf in the Outlook magazine of 20th of August 2012. The untended grounds of 26 Alipur Road in New Delhi's upscale civil lines neighborhood give a telling foretaste of the overall neglect of the building. It is hard to believe that this is Dr. Ambedkar's National Memorial, where the man spent his twilight years and breathed his last. The visitor's book here reveals more than the walls themselves. Scribbled in by a few visitors, it receives some all the way from Maharashtra, Haryana, Gujarat, urgent requests not for a better memorial, but for basic amenities like fans, lights, and some ventilation.
दादा
व्यूअर्स
ब्रेक
लोग
में
बोलते हैं तुम लोग क्या बकवास लेके बैठे हो. ये बकवास है जो हम पढ़ रहे हैं यहाँ पर बैठ करके 10 दिन से.
जिनको लग रहा है लगने दीजिए.
दादा जितने भी ये करते हैं कांग्रेसी काम खराब, वो हिंदुओं पे डाल देते. 84 के दंगों में मारा इन्होंने, ठीक है, मुसलमानों के साथ मिलके सरदारों को डाल हिंदुओं पे दिया. करे ये डालेंगे हिंदू पे. सेम केस हुआ जब इनके जो है चित्पावन ब्राह्मण जो थे वो वहाँ के महाराष्ट्र के, गांधी के असैसिनेशन के बाद उन पे हमले किए, नाम हिंदुओं का लगाया, हमले इन्होंने करे।
हमें तो इस बात की खुशी है कि हम लोग इतना अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं। आज नहीं 2 साल के बाद, 3 साल के बाद अगर यूट्यूब जिंदा रहा और ये चैनल जिंदा रहा तो लोग बाग पढ़ेंगे, सुनेंगे, तो कम से कम अच्छी तरीके से जानेंगे तो कि नेहरू ने किस तरीके से सरदार पटेल को ट्रीट किया, मनी भाई पटेल को ट्रीट किया, कैसे सावरकर को ट्रीट किया, कैसे अंबेडकर को ट्रीट किया और कैसे अपने आप को ट्रीट किया, सुभाष को कैसे ट्रीट किया। फिर बोलते हैं बकवास करके बैठे हुए यहाँ पर बिना मतलब में। जाओ ना जाकर के तुम एक्सप्लोजन चैनल में मारो, साले 3500 4000 लोग बैठ के देखते रहते हैं वहां पर, अपनी स्थिति कराते रहते हैं।
जी दादा,
हिंदुस्तान
121
को
पे
सुधार नहीं सकता, हिंदुस्तान की जनता खुद ही पागल है, हराम है।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, इसीलिए तो देश
जी
का
दादा,
ये हाल है।
121 रह गया ना,
कोई देश को चाहता ही नहीं है। ब्लंडर 121, इल ट्रीटमेंट
मैं
ऑफ
कर देता
श्यामा
हूँ दादा। ब्लंडर 121, इल
अच्छा
ट्रीटमेंट ऑफ।
तुम डॉक्टर को श्रद्धांजलि दोगे?
नहीं दादा, वो कोई नहीं, थोड़ा थोड़ा सा गैप ब्रेक लेते जा रहे हैं। मेरे को ब्रेक मिल गया, मैं दादा को दे देता हूँ थोड़ा सा।
बड़ा
और
इंटरेस्टिंग
लास्ट में
चीज है
वैसे
भाई
भी
ये, तो इसमें तो पढ़ो, देखो किस तरीके से हुआ है, बेचारे ने क्या किया था, किस तरीके से उसको मरवाया है इसने।
Blunder 121, ill treatment of Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, 1901 to 1953, was the son of Sri Asutosh Mukherjee, 1864 to 1924, renowned as Banglar Bagh.
यार बाघ, बाघ, टाइगर।
बांग्लार बाग मतलब बंगाल का, बंगाल टाइगर सीधा कहना चाह रहे हैं, और द टाइगर ऑफ बंगाल. Ashutosh Mukherjee was a great educationalist who had helped found many educational institutes like Bengal Technical Institute, College of Science, University College of Law, and the Calcutta Mathematical Society. And he served as the Vice Chancellor of the University of Calcutta during 1906 to 1914. Following his father's illustrious footsteps, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee became the youngest Vice Chancellor of the University of Calcutta at the age of 33 in 1934 and remained in that post till 1938. He was an eloquent speaker. He was elected to the Bengal Legislative Council in 1929 and again in 1937. Disenchanted with the Congress, he joined the Hindu Mahasabha in 1939 along with N.C. Chatterjee. He was sworn in as Finance Minister of Bengal in 1941.
एक सेकंड, एनसी चैटर्जी is the father of Somnath Chatterjee. Somnath Chatterjee was a member of the CPI. NC Chatterjee was of the Hindu Mahasabha. See the contrast.
बेटे कम्युनिस्ट।
हाँ,
पढ़ो।
जी दादा, एक मिनट, वो ये नो मोर जिहाद दादा आए हैं, एक बार इनको नमस्कार कर देता हूँ। नमस्कार नो मोर जिहाद दादा।
दादा साहब नमस्कार।
दादा शायद अभी बिजी है, जैसे ही एक्टिव होंगे फिर जो है नमस्कार मेरा पेंडिंग रहा अभी। कैलकाटा
आगे पढ़ो।
हाँ, एक मिनट, 1941. He was elected as the first Indian president of the Royal Asiatic Society of Bengal in 1943. He was the Minister of Industry and Supply in Nehru's cabinet after independence and joined the Congress. His performance was outstanding. Chittaranjan Locomotive Factory, Hindustan is
Shalom, shalom, namaste, namaste, जय भारत, जय इजराइल, सबके लिए।
जय भारत, जय इजराइल। डॉक्टर
कैसे?
नमस्ते, शलोम डॉक्टर साहब।
नमस्ते सर।
दादा नमस्कार।
हाँ जी,
जय भारत, जय इजराइल।
जय भारत, जय इजराइल।
नया भारत ने जय इजराइल। सॉरी, मैं अनम्यूट नहीं हो पा रहा था।
डॉक्टर नमस्कार।
हाँ जी, शलोम, नमस्ते। हाँ जी, आप लोग चलिएगा, हम सुन रहे हैं, बहुत अच्छे से सुन रहे हैं। आप चालू
फटाफट
रखिए।
कंप्लीट कर देता हूँ इसको, है ना दादा? फिर
हमारा अगर कोई व्यू लेना चाहते तो बोलिए इसके ऊपर।
जी दादा, अगर बीच में
इनको हम सुन रहे हैं, आप इनको मौका दीजिएगा।
नहीं, अभी आप
दादा
कुछ बोलना चाह रहे हैं तो बोलिए ना सर।
हाँ, अगर व्यू है आपका तो आप दे दीजिए, कोई बात नहीं, मैं कंटिन्यू कर लूंगा।
नहीं, हमारा व्यू तो इतना कोई खास नहीं है। सिंह सर और हमारे मजूमदार सर जी जुड़े हुए, बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है फिर से देख के। कल हमारी वो होने वाली है, डिबेट होने वाली है कि यहूदी धर्म गॉड ने दिया है कि इस्लाम धर्म गॉड ने दिया है। इस पे कल डिबेट होगी 3:30 बजे, आज कंफर्म हो गई है वो। चलिएगा, नेहरू जी की तो
बढ़िया
बहुत ही
सर,
ज्यादा
बिल्कुल।
ब्लंडर्स हैं अपने भारत को।
दादा इनके बंडल और सिगार की वजह से ही तो पूरे इंडिया को टीबी हुआ पड़ा है।
खत्म करो, आगे चलो।
हाँ जी, हाँ।
अच्छा, मैं भी मिल कर
And joined Congress. His performance was outstanding. Chittaranjan Locomotive Factory, Hindustan Aircraft Factory, and Sindri fertilizer works started under his leadership. But for his joint efforts, he would have been no Bengal. But for his joint efforts, there would have been no Bengal in India. The whole of it would have gone to Pakistan. He ensured the partition of Bengal in 1947. He adopted Nehru's
He
He
deplored.
deported Nehru. He deported Nehru's handling of the East
Deported नहीं,
Bengal.
deplored.
Reported नहीं, deplored.
He deplored
Deplored. धीरे
Nehru's
धीरे
handling of the
पढ़ेंगे।
East Bengal refugee problem and the Kashmir issue, and had serious difficulties with him, and had
Differences।
serious
अरे भैया
differences
आप
with him.
धीरे
जल्दी
He
धीरे
कर रहा है,
पढ़ो।
क्या
opposed.
है, क्या गड़बड़ कर रहा है?
ठीक है दादा, दोबारा रिपीट करता हूँ. And had serious differences with him. He
जल्दी मत
opposed
पढ़ो,
the
ध्यान से पढ़ो यार। मैसेज
हाँ,
गोज रॉन्ग। हाँ,
he opposed the Nehru-Liaquat Pact of 1950, Blunder 48, and in protest resigned from the cabinet and left the Congress. He co-founded the Bharatiya Jansangh on 21st October 1951 and became its first president. On Kashmir, Dr. Mukherjee wrote forthrightly to Nehru
forthrightly
forthrightly to Nehru
मतलब सीधा
on
एकदम, विदाउट
हाँ
विदाउट एनी तेल लगाओ, सीधा लिखा,
ठीक है
बिना बिना बटर
forthrightly
तेल लगाए हुए।
to Nehru on various occasions in 1953. On common feature of your speeches has been and is the abundance of abuses and virtue pet,
विटुपरेशन।
virtuperation, which you have poured forth on those who differ from you. You have ascribed us all sorts of base motives and have even doubled doubled
dubbed
dubbed as
us
betrayers dubbed
us
as dubbed us
dubbed
as
us as
betrayers of
betrayer
the
of the country's interest।
country's interest. I have no desire to emulate you in this respect. On
क्या अंग्रेजी है
communism.
भाई, वाओ। उफ उफ,
अरे पढ़ा लिखा आदमी था।
बहुत, क्या बाप रे। तो
This is the most unfair charge, and unconsciously you have been recently indulging in such attacks only to hide the weakness of your case. Our approach to the Kashmir problem
योर
is
हैं,
our our
हाँ,
our
आर अप्रोच, हाँ।
our approach to the Kashmir problem is actuated by highest national and patriotic considerations. You'll forgive me if I fail to appreciate your repeated reference to possible international complications as a result of Jammu Kashmir movement. No one today will claim that your handling of the Kashmir problem has enhanced our international prestige or has won us wide international support or sympathy. On the other hand, your policy in this behalf has added to complications both at home and abroad.
उसको सीधा मुंह पे
He,
जूता मारा है देखिए।
he opposed Article 370 related to J&K, yani Jammu and Kashmir, and Jammu and Kashmir, Dr. Ambedkar, Sardar Patel, and others too had expressed their disapproval of it and opposed the decision to grant Kashmir a special status with its own flag and prime minister, and according to which no one, including the President of India, could enter into Kashmir without the
ये बात
permission
कर
of
रहा है,
Kashmir.
इंक्लूडिंग प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया।
हम्म,
हाँ, permission of Kashmir's prime minister, without the permission of Kashmir's prime minister. He coined a slogan, एक देश में दो विधान, दो प्रधान और दो निशान नहीं चलेंगे. A single country can't have two constitutions, two prime ministers, and two national emblems, wrote historian Makhan Lal. Strange as it may sound, the people's demand for complete integration of Jammu and Kashmir with Indian Union and for the constitution, one flag
one
and one
constitution,
prime minister should have
and
been judged.
for one constitution, one flag, and one prime minister.
One constitution, one flag, and one prime minister should have been judged as treason
Pre-
to the
present to
country.
the country.
Treason to the country. Those who violated each and every agreement, who behaved treacherously,
Treacherously. Treacherously.
treacherously, and who made a
धोखेबाजी
mockery of
धोखेबाजी से
Mhm.
treacherously, who made a mockery of Indian constitution should have been called a nationalist. Only Jawaharlal Nehru could have done it.
गाली नेहरू को ही दे रहा है ना, नेहरू को ही गाली दे रहा है.
In protest, Dr. Mukherjee tried to enter Kashmir on 11th May 1953 but was arrested at the border and was lodged into a rundown.
In a rundown, dilapidated
In a
structure,
rundown.
dilapidated.
Dilapidated structure by the then PM of Jammu and Kashmir, Sheikh Abdullah. Reportedly, all this was in the knowledge of Nehru. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, an ex-PM, had accompanied as a journalist Dr. Mukherjee up to the point he was arrested, he alleged in 2004 when Mukherjee decided to violate
the
the
permit rule.
permit rule by entering Jammu and Kashmir without a permit. We thought the Punjab government would arrest him and prevent him from proceeding further. However, that did not happen. Later, we came to know that the JNK government and Nehru government had entered into a conspiracy, as per which it was decided that Mukherjee would be allowed to enter JNK but not be allowed to leave. Vajpayee alleged. The then Nehru government feared that if Mukherjee was not allowed to enter JNK, questions would be raised on integration of the state with the country, which had several drawbacks, and therefore the JNK government was told that he would not be allowed to come
He
back.
should not be allowed. He wouldn't. Should.
Told that he should not be allowed to come back.
Not किया ना वहाँ.
Even the British had not treated the Congress freedom fighter, especially the Gandhian leadership, in such an abject manner. Blunder 13. As the Free India treated Mukherjee, Dr. Mukherjee was held in detention for 42 days without bringing any charges or holding a trial. During that period, dignitaries like Dr. Maulana Azad, and Nehru visited Srinagar, but none bothered to meet Dr. Mukherjee. Maulana
शेम
Azad and
शेम 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 बाप रे क्या प्रेसिडेंट था ये आदमी अपने आप को क्या इसको बोलते हैं हिंदू का फिलोसफर था ये हीरो डॉक्टर राधाकृष्णन लाइक नंबर 1 चमचा
मौलाना
लड़की
दादा जिसका राज चल रहा था उसी के आगे पीछे घूम रहे थे बस. Maulana Azad and Nehru were in Srinagar during 16 to 21st May 1953. So much for Nehru being considerate, cultured, and humane. Dr. Mukherjee was already not in good health, and such deliberately inhuman treatment exacerbated his dry
Exacerbated his dry pleurisy and coronary heart
pleurisy
troubles.
and coronary, yani heart troubles. So callous and cruel was the attitude of the JNK government and Sheikh Abdullah. And Nehru must have been fully aware of the goings on. That Dr. Mukherjee was taken to a hospital full month and a half after his arrest. And so careless and improper was the treatment that he was administered penicillin, even though he had informed the doctor in charge of his allergy to penicillin. couldn't Nehru have flown in heart specialist? Couldn't Nehru have flown heart specialist or shifted him to New Delhi? Poor Dr. Mukherjee. He
Succumb.
succumbed to the ill treatment on 23rd June 1953. Such a major health
रिएक्शन हो गया ना, पेनिसिलिन
हाँ,
की वजह से रिएक्शन हो गया.
such a major death, and that too in government custody, and yet no inquiry commission was set up despite demands. Nehru stated dismissively that he had made inquiries and was satisfied there was no wrongdoing. Was he a detective? Such an immature comment from a PM, and if there was no wrongdoing, he could have let an inquiry commission establish it. An inquiry into Dr. Mukherjee's death was demanded by stalwarts like
Stalwarts.
Bengal stalwarts like
Stalwarts.
Bengal stalwarts like Bengal stalwarts like Bengal CM BC Roy, Mr. Jacker, PD
एमआर
Tandon.
जैकर, मिस्टर नहीं, एमआर जैकर.
एमआर जैकर, ठीक है, वो मिस्टर पढ़ गया, मैं डॉट लगा होता तो मिस्टर पढ़ना था. एमआर जैकर, पीडी टंडन, एमवी कामनाथ, एच एम कामत, एच कुंजरू, सचेता कृपलानी, सुचेता कृपलानी, एनसी चैटर्जी and Atulya Ghosh, and also by MS Jogmaya Devi, mother of Dr. Mukherjee. But Nehru obstinately turned a deaf ear. Several prominent personalities protested Nehru not conducting an inquiry, but Nehru was unmoved. Disgusted, Miss Jogmata Devi, mother of Dr. Mukherjee, finally wrote to Nehru, "It is futile to address you. It is futile to address to you further. It is futile to address to you further. You are afraid to face facts. I hold the Kashmir government responsible for the death of my son. I accuse your government of complicity in the matter. You may let loose your mighty resources to carry on a desperate propaganda, but truth is sure to find its way out, and one day you will have to answer this to the people of India and to God in heaven." Heaven कहाँ जाएगा? सुअर नरक में जाएगा.
नहीं, ये तो जन्नत जाएगा यार, जन्नत जाएगा.
हाँ, ये मुसलमानों वाली जन्नत में भले चला जाए. It was not democracy. It was an autocracy under Nehru. There have been numerous major instances during the Nehruvian era where cases that could adversely affect Nehru's image or that of his government were either not taken cognizance of or not booked, or inquiries were not conducted, and if so done under public pressure, the same were subsequently scuttled, and where they could not be scuttled, their reports were suppressed or kept classified, like the Henderson Brooks Bhagat report on the 1962 Indo-China War debacle. Such things are impossible in the current media age. Had even 5% of the current media existed, then Nehru would have stood exposed much earlier in his term. Significantly, within 3 months from Dr. Mukherjee's martyrdom, Nehru had eggs all over his face. Sheikh Abdullah had to be unseated and locked in jail.
That's it for today.
जी सर.
सर दादा, ऐसे आदमी को तो एक वो आंदोलन चलाना था खुद से ही, है, भ्रूण आत्महत्या का आंदोलन इसने चला लेना चाहिए था इंडिया को देखते हुए. माँ की कोख में ही मर जाना था इसे.
ये ब्लंडर इंटरव्यू कल होगा, कल तो नहीं, सॉरी मंडे को होगा।
हाँ
प्रदीप, वो इजराइल वाला पर दोबारा पढ़ के डॉक्टर साहब को सुनाओ, इजराइल के साथ में क्या एटीट्यूड था इसका।
बहुत जगह है सर, इजराइल तो बहुत
जी दादा, इजराइल वाला तो बताना ही पड़ेगा, क्योंकि इजराइल हमेशा जो है, इजराइल की इंडिया की बहुत बनती रही है,
मदद किया है।
डॉक्टर साहब यहाँ पर डॉक्टर साहब को बताना जरूरी है, डॉक्टर साहब वहाँ पे बता सकते हैं ना कि इनका एटीट्यूड क्या था बेवकूफों का।
क्योंकि दादा
इजराइल लिखिए, कंट्रोल एस करके इजराइल लिखिए, जितना
एक
बार
मिनट
आएगा
मैं कर रहा हूँ दादा।
मैं कर रहा हूँ ना, देख तो रहा हूँ।
ये है ना दादा?
नहीं, पहले वाला, ये तो लैंग्वेज की बात कर रहे हैं।
ब्लंडर 34 54 सॉरी,
यही है ना दादा?
कौन सा पेज है?
पेज है दादा 189।
एक मिनट।
एम दादा ये वाला आप करो ताकि बढ़िया से समझ में आया ना। मैं गड़बड़ कर जाऊंगा, पुरानी वाली, पुराने टाइम की जो वो है ना इंग्लिश, वो थोड़ा कम ही पढ़ पाते हैं हम लोग।
नहीं चलेगा, वो इंग्लिश में थोड़ा गलती हो सकता है।
हाँ नहीं, ये अपनी ये पुरानी वाली इंग्लिश हमारे लिए टंग ट्विस्टर हो जाती है।
डॉक्टर साहब ये आपके लिए, थैंक्स फॉर कमिंग। हम लोगों ने इसको पढ़ा था, फिर से पढ़ते हैं ब्लंडर 54।
दादा इस पे पहले मैं एक कमेंट करना चाहूंगा।
बोलो।
इजराइल की और इंडिया की हमेशा जो है बनती रही है, पीपल टू पीपल भी, और वहाँ की गवर्नमेंट टू इंडियन पीपल भी, ठीक है, दोनों तरीके से हमेशा बनी रही है इनकी। लेकिन क्या है, गवर्नमेंट जो हमारी आई है उसने कभी बना के नहीं रखी है, आज तक भी वो वैसे ही है। ठीक है, थोड़ा सा पॉजिटिव अभी दिखा रही है, लेकिन वैसा नहीं है जैसा होना था। ठीक है दादा, अब आप कंटिन्यू करिए।
Blunder 54, rebuffing Israel, the friend in need. The irony and the absurdity of Nehru's foreign policy is hard not to notice. India under Nehru was amongst the first nations to recognize the People's Republic of China when communists took over in 1949. But when it came to Israel, Nehru did not recognize it as a nation till September 1950, even though it was established on 14th of May 1948, and most nations of the world had recognized it. While Nehru campaigned for admission of China to the United Nations and even into the United Nations Security Council, sacrificing its own chances, India not only voted against the United Nations resolution that had the effect of creating Israel, but also voted against Israel's admission to the United Nations in 1949. This when China did what it did, annexing Tibet and inflicting 1962 India-China war, while Israel was indeed India's friend in need. On 29th of October 1947, the United Nations General Assembly voted on the modified UN partition plan of Palestine that effectively included creation of Israel for Jews. 33 nations voted in favor. They included the US, the European countries, the Soviet Union, the East European countries, and the Latin American countries, and 13 against. There were 10 abstentions and 1 absent. Abstentions included the Republic of China and Yugoslavia.
एक मिनट, इसमें सोवियत यूनियन वाज आल्सो इन फेवर ऑफ इजराइल टू बी इंक्लूडेड यूएनए। जब ये सोवियत रूस का चमचा था, फिर भी इसने नहीं वोट दिया।
Those against included 10 Muslim nations, namely, ढक गया है, इसको थोड़ा हटा दीजिए ना
जी दादा।
वो
अच्छा ये ढक गया,
फाइंडर
एक
हटा
मिनट,
दीजिए, फाइंडर हटा दीजिए। Those included 10 Muslim nations, namely Afghanistan, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Turkey, and Yemen, and 3 others, namely Cuba, Greece, and 1 more country. Guess which? Most regretfully, it was India. This was despite Albert Einstein's personal appeal to Nehru. Here are extracts from the article when Nehru shunned Einstein's request to support the Jewish cause. On 11th June 1947, Albert Einstein made an extraordinary intervention in global geopolitical affairs by writing to the then Prime Minister designate of India, Jawaharlal Nehru. He implored India's leader to endorse the Zionist effort to recreate a Jewish homeland in Palestine. Appealing to Nehru's moral sensibilities, he focused on the ethical question of whether the Jews should be allowed to have a homeland in the soil of their fathers. In his letter, Einstein described the historical wrong done to the Jewish people who had been victimized and hounded for centuries. He wrote that millions of Jews had died not only because of the Nazi gas chambers, but also because there was no spot on the globe where they could find sanctuary. Zionism was the means to
end the
नहीं उठाने से नहीं कर पाऊंगा. End this anomaly of history. Zionism was the means to end this anomaly of history, he wrote, and a solution for this persecuted people to settle in a land to which they had historic ties. A nation which got independence only a few months earlier on 15th of August 1947, after having suffered foreign domination, ignominy, insult to its culture and religion, and back-breaking exploitation for over 1,000 years, should have valued independence or creation of another nation, especially those for Jews who richly deserved it. Jews had suffered for centuries like the Hindus had suffered, though much longer. We should have had empathy for them. But Nehru, what can one say of his convoluted thinking, defective worldview, and faulty approach? India could have at least abstained from voting rather than voting against. Nehru could recognize China's sovereignty over Tibet, which had an adverse impact on India, but not build relations with Israel, with which India had much in common, and relations with whom would have been very helpful in various fields. Indira Gandhi, like a father, and Rajiv Gandhi, like a mother, maintained their distance from Israel. What Nehru and Indira dynasty did was driven by the self-interest of vote bank politics, minority Muslim votes, at the cost of the nation. It was left to the wise non-dynasty Prime Minister Narasimha Rao to establish former relations with Israel in 1992. It is worth noting that despite Nehru-Indira dynasty's unjust treatment of Israel, Israel helped India in whatever manner it could in India's multiple war with its neighbors. India sought and got arms from Israel both in the 1962 India-China war and in the 1971 Bangladesh war. Israel has been supplying us critical military and security equipment. Its modern and innovative agricultural practices are worth emulating by India. Despite severe lack of natural resources, wars and enemies on all sides, the new nation of Israel, created only in 1948, became a shining first world nation within a few decades, while India, under the Nehru dynasty, remained a poor, miserable, third-rate, third world country.
क्या बोलेंगे डॉक्टर साहब?
दादा ये कंप्लीट हो गया, लिंक भी दिखा देता हूँ जो बता रखा है इसमें.
हाँ 1971 के युद्ध पे हेल्प किया था, ये मुझे मालूम था.
डॉक्टर तो आने दीजिए ना.
ये दादा ये वो लिंक है.
हम तो सुन रहे हैं सर, थोड़ा इंटरनेट का प्रॉब्लम है.
नहीं, आपकी आवाज ठीक ठाक आ रही है सर.
थोड़ा इंटरनेट का प्रॉब्लम है. हाँ आप चालू रखिए, हम सुन रहे हैं.
196 पेज पढ़ो तो 196 पेज पढ़ो. दादा मजुमदार दादा.
जी जी जी.
एक मिनट दादा, मैं 196 पे कर देता हूँ ना.
हाँ.
foreign to foreign policy, ये वाला।
हाँ, यहाँ पे पढ़ो, यहाँ पे ये क्या बोल रहा है ये, हाउ कम नो नेशन केम टू इंडिया रेस्क्यू, यहाँ से पढ़ो।
ये कहाँ पर है सर?
इफ ours was a good foreign policy में इसी में नीचे आके आ रहा है, चौथी लाइन में है, फोर्थ या फिफ्थ लाइन में, हाउ कम नो नेशन केम टू इंडिया रेस्क्यू।
किस वाले में
196
दादा?
पेज में if ours was a good foreign policy, इसके फिफ्थ लाइन में है, हाउ कम नो नेशन केम टू इंडिया रेस्क्यू।
हाँ ये है ये।
If ours was a good foreign policy, how come all our major neighbors became our enemies and a friendly neighbor Tibet disappeared as an independent nation? How come all our borders turned insecure during the Nehruvian era, costing us a fortune to defend them? How come no nation came to India's rescue, including Nehru's non-aligned and socialist communist friends in its war with China, except the nation Nehru and Krishna Menon always panned, the United States, or the nation Nehru refused to recognize, Israel? You evaluate a policy by its results, not by its verbosity and pompousness, wrote Walter Crocker. He, Nehru, insisted on keeping the portfolio of external affairs for himself. It was a disadvantage to him that he did so because, as head of the whole of government of India, he had to deal with a range of internal problems already too much for one's
बस
mind.
छोड़ दो, हो गया। अब 260 पेज पे जाओ।
260
260, हाँ 260।
ये वाला कह रहे हो ना आप?
In sharp contrast to India.
In sharp contrast to India, it is admirable that what Israel did upon formation of Israel in 1948. Many Jews scattered all over the world came over. They spoke different languages. To ensure a unifying language, many linguists, backed by the state, set about reviving Hebrew, Israel's ancient language, which had fallen in decrepitude. Now all Israelis speak Hebrew. It has given them an identity and has greatly helped unify Israel. Most also know English as it is taught from the primary school itself.
जी दादा, यही यहाँ पे जरूरत थी। जैसे ही इजराइल बना नया देश, इन्होंने लैंग्वेज के इशू सॉल्व करने के लिए अपनी एंशियंट लैंग्वेज को रिवाइव किया। इंडिया में रिवाइव करने की भी उतना जरूरत नहीं थी, काफी बोलने वाले थे, बस उनको बुला के सामने रखना था और पढ़ाना था, और सारी लैंग्वेजेस के जो सारे इश्यूज थे वो सॉल्व हो जाते। इन्होंने वही किया जो करना चाहिए था सही मायने में, और हमने वो नहीं किया जो हमें करना था।
और यूएस ने इसलिए वोट किया क्योंकि इजराइल में एक बहुत मतलब पोर्शन ऑफ एक ह्यूज अमाउंट ऑफ पर्सन मतलब सिटीजन्स रशियन बोलते हैं।
346 पेज पे पढ़ो, नेहरू ट्राई टू शक अप 346
Nehru tried to suck up to the country, USSR, that shunned, criticized, ignored, and insulted us in the 1940s and early. अरे हटाइए ना इसको, पढ़ नहीं पाऊंगा ना, वो बॉक्स हटाइए प्लीज. And early 1950s, things changed with Khrushchev, and cold-shouldered countries like the USA and Israel and tried to be friendly. Such a person considered himself to be a great internationalist and a foreign affairs expert. And what is more the great, wise Mahatma Gandhi and many other Congress stalwarts, except for the genuinely wise Sardar Patel, also thought so.
बस 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 बस, देखा क्या करता था ये।
एक आदमी जो बोलता था सब लोग सुनते थे ना।
भेड़ चाल चल रही थी, एक सुअर आगे आगे मतवाला होके चल रहा था, बाकी सारे पीछे पीछे निकल लेते थे।
बस हो गया, इतना ही था इजराइल के बारे में, यही रेफरेंस था बस। और
कंक्लूड कर देंगे सर आज?
हाँ हाँ हाँ, बंद करो।
नहीं, आप बोल दीजिए ना कुछ।
मैं क्या बोलूं, अभी तो जहां पर हम लोग हैं, मैं तो यही बोलता हूं कि मतलब व्यूवर से
जितना
मैं यही
पढ़ेंगे,
करता हूं कि इसको स्प्रेड करो, लोगों को फैलाओ, जिससे कि नेहरू की जितनी भी हरकतें हैं वो सब मालूम पड़े, सबके सामने आ जाएं कि असल में आज की डेट में जो इंडिया की जो हालत है वो नेहरू और नेहरू की डायनेस्टी, इंदिरा जी ने और क्या बोलते हैं राजीव गांधी, इन लोगों ने की है। और अभी भी अगर आप इनके चक्कर में, कांग्रेसियों के चक्कर में फंसते हो तो यू आर टेकिंग द कंट्री बैक टू where we were in 70s और 60s। मैं तो ये बोलना चाहता हूँ। तो मेरा तो आप सबसे रिक्वेस्ट यही है कि इस वीडियो को शेयर करो, लाइक करो और पूरा वायरल करो, मैं ये बोलना चाहता हूँ। बाकी आपकी मर्जी, आपको अगर देश के बारे में नहीं सोचना है, सिर्फ धर्म के बारे में सोचना है, अपने बारे में सोचना है, तो जो सोचना है सोचते रहो, खुद अपने आप रिस्पॉन्सिबल होगे, अपने पैरों पे खुद कुल्हाड़ी मारोगे।
जी दादा, एक और चीज़ है, जितना भी आज के समय में प्रॉब्लम है, इसका टेम्पलेट जो है ये नेहरूवियन एरा में ही बन चुका था। ठीक है, आप पॉलिटिकल अरीना का देख लो, जितना भी वहाँ वोट बैंक पॉलिटिक्स होती है, सबका टेम्पलेट ऑलरेडी पहले बन चुका था। आप एकेडमिया में देख लो, जो टेम्पलेट है, जिस तरीके का कंटेंट होना चाहिए, ठीक है, जो चीज़ें सामने रखनी है, जो चीज़ें छुपानी है, उसका टेम्पलेट ऑलरेडी बन चुका था। ये वो भी आज तक ऐसे ही चल रहा है। थोड़ा बहुत रिवाइव की कोशिश कर रहे हैं वो, बट उतना नहीं कर रहे हैं। फिर भी मैं करंट गवर्नमेंट को भी कह रहा हूँ कि जितना भी रिवाइवल कर रहे हैं वो भी बस बहुत ज़्यादा मिनिमल है, बस ये है पॉलिशिंग है वो।
आज की डेट में कर्नाटका में जो हारे हैं बीजेपी वाले, वो क्यों हारे हैं?
सर वजह आप लिखे हैं, एकदम सही लिखे हैं।
उनका कारण क्या है मैं बता देता हूँ, पब्लिक के सामने बताता हूँ बिफोर वी क्लोज दिस स्ट्रीम। पिछली बार जेडीएस को, जो देवेगौड़ा की पार्टी है, उसको 18% वोट मिला था। अब की बार उनको मिला है 13%, मतलब 5% वोट उनका कम हुआ है। और वही 5% वोट जो 38 पे थे 43 पे पहुंचे कांग्रेसी। मतलब पूरा का पूरा कांग्रेस, जेडीएस का वोट है वो शिफ्ट हुआ है कांग्रेस की तरफ को। और वो क्यों शिफ्ट हुआ है? ओनली बिकॉज ऑफ द मैनिफेस्टो, जहां पर उन्होंने बोला है कि हम पीएफआई का और पीएफआई जैसे बजरंग दल जैसे वो करने का मतलब ये हुआ कि जो मुस्लिम वोट जेडीएस के पास में जा रहा था वो पूरा पूरा एन ब्लॉक वहां चला गया, कांग्रेस के पास चला गया और इस जगह जीत गए। मतलब अभी भी 75 साल होने के बावजूद भी कांग्रेस उसी पॉलिटिक्स पे चल रही है कि माइनॉरिटीज को अपीज करते रहो और वोट लेते रहो और रूल करते रहो। और जब तक हिंदुस्तान के पब्लिक इस बात को नहीं समझेगी, हमारा जो हिंदू वोट है, सनातनी वोट है, वो कभी भी इकट्ठा नहीं होता है। वहां पर लिंगायत अलग, कनगडिगा अलग, वोकलिगा अलग, पता नहीं क्या क्या करते रहते हैं। और उन लोगों ने डिफरेंट तरीके से वोट दिया और हिंदू यूनाइट नहीं हुआ, उस चक्कर में कांग्रेस जीत गई। अब भुगतो 5 साल वहां पे बैठ करके।
जी दादा, तो अभी जो मैंने बताया था टेम्पलेट जो है पॉलिटिकल अरीना में भी वही चल रहा है, एकेडमिया में भी वही है, आपका मीडिया भी उसी तरीके से उसी टेम्पलेट पे चलता है आज भी।
वो तो बिकाऊ है, वो तो मतलब मैं सीधा बोलूं, अभी पब्लिक सुन रही होगी, जो भी सुनेगी बाद में, दे आर मीडिया पर्सन्स आर रियली प्रोस्टिट्यूट नहीं है, दे आर प्रोस्टिट्यूट। उनको पैसा चाहिए, जहां पैसा मिलता है वहां पे वो करते हैं। ये बताओ, शीश महल का जो नाटक है वो टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया ने और टाइम्स नाउ ने दुनिया भर को चलाया, बाकी चैनल ने क्यों नहीं चलाया? क्योंकि बाकी चैनल का मुंह बंद है ना, वो तो के खिलाफ बोलते नहीं है कुछ।
दादा, जिस कुत्ते के मुंह में हड्डी होती है वो भौंकता नहीं है।
तो मैं वही बोल रहा हूँ, ये मीडिया नहीं है, ये बोलते हैं फ्रीडम ऑफ प्रेस नहीं बोलते, ये नंबर 1 दलाल हैं, मीडिया के दलाल हैं ये सारे जितने भी हैं।
और दादा, इसके अलावा जुडिशरी में भी सेम टेम्पलेट चल रहा है, एंड सो इन ब्यूरोक्रेसी।
अभी ये बताओ, हम लोगों ने एक दिन वो किया था ना, वो क्या बोलते हैं, बाटला हाउस का एक एपिसोड किया था,
इनकाउंटर।
उसमें एक डीसीपी के बारे में याद होगा, मजुमदार साहब आपको याद होगा,
जी सर, जी सर।
डीसीपी एक था यादव, जिसको कर्नल
हाँ
सिंह
जी,
ने लिखा अपनी किताब में, यादव करके था ना, जिसने बोला था
जी
कि
जी जी जी
वो जो शर्मा जी है वो मर गए।
जी।
जी न्यूज में जो आज की डेट में दीपक चौरसिया के साथ में बैठती है, शोभना यादव, मालूम है कौन है वो उसकी बीबी है।
अच्छा अच्छा।
अच्छा,
अब अगर वो बंदा सर्विंग डीसीपी है दिल्ली का, तो पक्की बात है वो तो बोल देगा ना मेरी बीबी को नौकरी दे दो,
जी जी
क्यों नहीं देगा जी वाला। और वो बैठ के एक्सपर्ट की तरीके से बोलती रहती है, ऐसा हो गया, वैसा हो गया, ये हो गया, वो हो गया। एक सीट जालंधर की जीती है लोकसभा की आम आदमी पार्टी ने, और ये लोग फैला रहे हैं कि अरे वाह 2024 में अब तो आम आदमी पार्टी पूरे हिंदुस्तान में छा जाएगी और अरविंद केजरीवाल प्राइम मिनिस्टर बन जाएगा। मैं वही बोल रहा हूँ, 47 में देश आजाद हुआ है, लेकिन जो 47 से पहले जहर बोया था, जो 3 जनरेशन का सत्यानाश हमारे एजुकेशन सिस्टम ने किया है, उसके चक्कर में अभी भी जो आज का जवान लड़का है 20 से लेकर के 18 से 25 साल की उम्र वाला, जो भी वोट देने वाला है, वो इन चीजों को देखता नहीं है। तो वो देखता है ठीक है यार, कौन सी चिकनी औरत है, कौन सा चिकना आदमी है, कौन सा हमारे फायदे की बात करता है, उतनी बात में दे देता है। वो लॉन्ग टर्म रिप्रिकॉशन क्या होने वाला है इंडियन पॉलिटी में, उसके बारे में सोचता नहीं है वो। बनाओ ना तुम राहुल गांधी को प्राइम मिनिस्टर, देखो ना कैसे सत्यानाश होता है, पूरा पूरा हिंदुस्तान को चाइना के पास में भेज देगा वो। पता नहीं क्या सोचते हैं यहाँ के लोग, समझ में नहीं आता है।
दादा जब तक लालच करेंगे यही यही जो है फेट रहेगा हमारा।
और हमारे जो क्या बोलते हैं वो एक है ना कि जिनके पास में सब कुछ पूरी ताकत है कि पूरी दुनिया को अंतर्यामी है समझ लेता है। बंगाल में इसी चक्कर में, अरे बंगाल में इन्होंने लीडरशिप डेवलप नहीं होने दी, कोई लीडरशिप वहां पे डेवलप नहीं होने दी, हम यहाँ से डिसाइड करेंगे। वो तो शुक्र है योगी का कि योगी के पास में अपनी ताकत थी जो आगे आ गया है। अगर
वो
ये
तो
योगी
पहले
की
से ही
जगह
है
पर,
सर, बहुत पहले से है, बहुत पहले से।
हाँ,
हाँ,
योगी ने
2010
बीजेपी से पंगा लिया था, और वो जो केशव प्रसाद मौर्य है, ये लोग नहीं चाह रहे थे कि हाँ ये बंदा आ गया है, फिर भी उसको लेकर के आए। ऐसे ही असम में हेमंत दादा को लेकर के आए, वहां पर उस चक्कर में वो लोग जीत रहे हैं। बाकी जगह पर देखो इन्होंने कहीं पर भी कोई लीडरशिप डेवलप ही नहीं की। जहां पर लीडरशिप डेवलप हुई उसको जैसे जवाहरलाल नेहरू इंदिरा जी मारती थी उसी तरीके से मारते थे ये लोग। शिवराज चौहान को कतरने की
एकदम
कोशिश किया
सही
पिछली
बोला
बार की,
सर।
बहुत हो गया, और उस चक्कर में बीजेपी हार गई एमपी में। ऐसे ही वो कौन था वहां पर, हाँ छत्तीसगढ़ वाला था ना, वो क्या नाम था, रमन सिंह का बाजा बजाया इन लोगों ने। किसी लीडरशिप को डेवलप नहीं होने दिया। ये सोचते हैं कि कांग्रेस के हाईकमांड में और बीजेपी के हाईकमांड में क्या फर्क है। अगर आप येदियुरप्पा को रहने देते वहां पर, तो जो साउथ कनाडा में, जो कोस्टल कनाडा में जो जितने लिंगायत तोड़ते, वो सारे सारे तुम्हारे को मिलते थे।
बिल्कुल सर।
सारे लिंगायत तोड़ कट गए वहां से। साउथ कनाडा गढ़ था इनका। 1990 में पहली बार जब ये आए थे, सबसे ज्यादा तब सीटें मिली थी, उस समय येदियुरप्पा वॉज ऑन टॉप। और येदियुरप्पा को इसलिए नहीं, 75 साल की ज्यादा उम्र हो गई है, तुम बाहर जाओ। क्या मतलब है बाहर जाओ? जनता को थोड़ा लगता है, जनता को लगता है साला दूसरी पार्टी में 80 साल वाला बंदा के
पब्लिक को
बैठा
भी
हुआ है।
सबक मिलना चाहिए, पब्लिक को भी सबक मिलना चाहिए, और बीजेपी को भी सबक मिलना चाहिए कि दे आर नॉट अबव एवरीबॉडी। ये सोचते हैं कि ऐसे ही मतलब जीत जाएंगे मोदी का नाम से।
पब्लिक तो बेवकूफ है। मैं ये सोचता हूँ कि जो जिनको जो स्ट्रेटजी बनाते हैं, नड्डा साहब हैं, हिमाचल का इलेक्शन जिता नहीं पाए, उनको बीजेपी का प्रेसिडेंट बना के बैठे हुए। अमित शाह के बेसिस पर और नरेंद्र मोदी के बेसिस पर तुम पूरे हिंदुस्तान को जीत लोगे क्या? आज की डेट में 6 स्टेट साउथ के निकल गए हैं। साउथ इज टोटली एंटी बीजेपी। तमिलनाडु बाहर, केरला बाहर, कर्नाटका बाहर, ये क्या बोलते हैं तेलंगाना बाहर, आंध्र प्रदेश बाहर।
बाहर।
और कुछ दिनों में देख लेना, अगली बार इलेक्शन होगा तो महाराष्ट्र भी बाहर चला जाएगा, जिस तरीके से नाटक कर रहे हैं लोग। खुशियां मना रहे हैं वो रिपब्लिक वाला, और टाइम्स नाउ रिपब्लिक वाला सिर्फ यूपी के लोकल बॉडी से इलेक्शन को दिखा रहा है जी वो बहुत बड़ी जीत हो गई। बताना वहां पर अगर तेरी हिम्मत है तो। लेकिन नहीं बताएगा वो, क्योंकि उसको गवर्नमेंट से एड मिलता है, और अर्णब गोस्वामी को मोदी से पंगा नहीं लेना है। ठीक है, चलो बंद करते हैं। इस
जी दादा।
क्लिप को देखो भाई, कल हम लोग इसका लास्ट एपिसोड करेंगे। कल करें ना, संडे को, या कब करेंगे? जयवर्ती साहब बोलो।
करते हैं कल दादा, रैप कर देते हैं। मैं आपको सिर्फ एक चीज़ दिखाना चाहता था, वेट कर रहा था आपने। खैर आप पॉलिटिकल पार्टी से छोड़ो, मैं तो बता रहा हूँ कि हिंदू क्या कर रहा है। मैं आपको एक ना अपना कैमरा, ये फोन में कुछ दिखाता हूँ। अगर देखो, आई होप यू सी कि हिंदू की क्या प्रायोरिटी है। ये नजर आ रहा है?
हाँ, आग आग नजर आ रहा है।
आग लग रही
बना
है
भी
ना?
बना रहे हैं।
हाँ,
हाँ, अब ठीक है। आग आग लग रही है।
ठीक
आग
है।
का शिखा जो है दिख रहा है।
हाँ, ये कह रहा है जय ज्वालामुखी माता, ब्लेसिंग।
जी जी जी।
दादा, ये ब्लेसिंग्स हैं?
हाँ, पैसे भेजो, ब्लेसिंग ले लो वहाँ से।
नहीं, दे हिंदू का है कि किसी तीर्थ जरूर जाओ। मैं खुद हिंदू
नहीं
हूँ।
नहीं, ठीक है, मैं वो नहीं बोल रहा हूँ। आजकल ऑनलाइन आपको ब्लेसिंग मिल जाएगी,
नहीं नहीं,
पैसे भेजते रहो।
हाँ, चाहे ये खुद गया हो, ये मेरे ग्रुप में है, इंडिया से है, यंग लड़का है, मल्टीनेशनल में काम करते हैं, लेकिन प्रायोरिटी बस यही है,
नहीं,
ब्लेसिंग्स।
ज्वालामुखी का तो आप जानते हैं, वहाँ नेचुरल गैस है नीचे।
नहीं दादा,
ना,
मैं कुछ और ही कह रहा हूँ कि हिंदू का सर कहीं पे घुसा हुआ है। मैं बोलना नहीं चाहता कहीं घुसा हुआ है।
भगवान
दादा
बचाए।
मैं बोलूं?
एक
अब बोलेगा
मैं बोल देता हूँ, क्रूड लैंग्वेज में बोल देता हूँ। इन बेवकूफों ने, पंडितों ने, हिंदुओं ने ये सोचा था कि सोमनाथ मंदिर में जो शंकर जी का त्रिशूल है ना, वो गजनवी का सिर काट देगा। और हुआ क्या? गजनवी जो शंकर जी का वो जो लिंग था ना, उसे काट के लेके चला गया।
दादा, एक सिद्धांत होता है कर्म का। आप तब रिजल्ट एक्सपेक्ट करते हो जब आप कर्म करो। आप कर्म नहीं करोगे, आप सोच रहे हो रिजल्ट
कुछ
एक्सपेक्ट
नहीं
कर ले कि
होगा,
भगवान
कुछ नहीं
करेगा
होगा।
आके। कलयुग है, भगवान
कलयुग का
प्रत्यक्ष
कोई
नहीं
युग
आते।
में,
खुद
कोई
कर्म
युग
करो,
में बिना
बचाओ।
काम के कुछ होना ही नहीं।
अरे पूजा पाठ गई तेल लेने के लिए, अपना काम करो, जो तुम्हारे काम दिया उसको पूरा
नहीं,
पूरा
अगर
करो,
समय
बाकी
बचता
चलता
है,
रहेगा।
आपको अच्छा लगता है, कीजिए, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, लेकिन पहले अपना काम कीजिए ना। इससे बड़ा पूजा
वही तो
क्या
दादा
है?
कह रहा हूँ, कर्म जो है सबसे
सवेरे
पहले करना होता है। सबसे
सुबह
पहला
7
काम
बजे से
कर्म
पेपर
करना।
होगा, और तुम्हारे घर वाले बोलेंगे कि एक काम करो, 8 बजे मंदिर में जाने के बाद पेपर देने जाना, तुम्हारा पेपर नहीं छूट जाएगा क्या?
छूटेगा दादा, इसीलिए तो मैं कह रहा हूँ कर्म पहले होता है ना, उसके बाद सारी चीज होती है।
बजरंग बली पे जीतेंगे। मुंबई को बिठाया बिठाया क्यों था? क्योंकि वैसा मुंबई का लड़का है। क्या मतलब था उसका? उसके अंदर क्वालिटी क्या थी? तुम बोलते हो कि हमारे यहाँ पर बहुत ज्यादा डेमोक्रेसी है, हमारे पर ये है, तुमने थोपा ना उसको, मुंबई को, वहां पे।
मैंने कुछ नहीं है सर।
ऐसे
आपको
ही उत्तराखंड में सत्यानाश किया था। वो तो उत्तराखंड की पब्लिक थोड़ा सा इनसे बहुत, हरीश रावत और से बहुत तंग थी। उनको मालूम था कि बद्रीनाथ केदारनाथ में मुसलमान जाके कब्जा कर रहे हैं, उस चक्कर में उन्होंने वोट दे दिया, नहीं तो जाती थी वहां से भी।
अभी भी मुसलमान का रिजर्वेशन जो है बढ़ाते जा रहा है, बढ़ाते जा रहा है। पास मानना भी चाहिए,
कर्नाटका के मुसलमानों को खुश करने के लिए यूपी के लोकल बॉडीज में
कोई वोट नहीं दिया सर।
293 पसमानदाज को टिकट दिया था बेवकूफ ने।
वही तो मैं बोल रहा हूँ सर, बेवकूफ है।
एक भी उस दिन बता रहे थे ना, वो जो कौन सा है वो इलाहाबाद वाला कौन है, मुख्तार अंसारी, क्या नकवी, उसके कोई बता दो ना, रावण बता रहे थे कि 2 सीट 2 वोट मिले थे उनके घर से। मुसलमान कभी तुमको वोट नहीं देगा, तुम भूल जाओ।
ये गांधी बने हुए कोशिश करते जा रहे हैं। अरे भाई, नहीं मिलेगा। तुम सर के बल खड़े हो जाओ, आसमान जमीन पे लाके रख दो, तब भी
अब
नहीं
दूसरा
मिलेगा।
कोई पार्टी आएगा, देखिए, कोई दूसरा आएगा पार्टी, तभी कुछ होगा।
ये पता नहीं कौन इनको एडवाइस करा, नूपुर शर्मा को इन्होंने बस के नीचे डाल दिया। वो जो
अभी
बेचारा
तक कोई
आंध्र प्रदेश
पता
और
ही नहीं है,
तेलंगाना का जो
देखिए
लीडर था, डॉक्टर राजा सिंह, कौन सा एमएलए था, उसको उठा के पार्टी से बाहर कर दिया। किसको खुश
सर। अभी
करना चाह
तक
रहे हो
कोई
भाई?
पता ही नहीं है, बताइए कितना शर्मनाक बात है। मतलब इतना दिन हो गया, अभी तक उसको छिपा के रखा हुआ, क्यों? कौन सा चोरी किया उसने?
एनीवे बंद करते हैं, 3 घंटा 14 मिनट हो गया है, बंद करो प्रदीप,
जी
बंद करो
दादा,
भाई,
इसको रैप अप
जो भी
करता हूँ
बातें
मैं।
करनी है कर दो, बंद करो इसको।
ठीक है, तो हमारे जो भी ऑडियंस हैं उनको समय देने के लिए धन्यवाद। और ये हमारा ब्लंडर्स ऑफ नेहरू पार्ट 12, अभी हम इसको रोकते हैं और इसके बाद मोस्ट प्रोबेबली एक और इसका अध्याय आएगा। तो तब तक के लिए हम आपको शुक्रिया करते हैं कि आपने समय दिया, और इसको शेयर करें, सब्सक्राइब करें और कमेंट करें।
लाइक भी करें
इसके
भाई,
अलावा हाँ, लाइक भी कर दें।
तो यारों के साथ में शेयर करके सुनाओ ना भाई, क्या 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 हो रहा है क्या नहीं हो रहा है। सिर्फ क्रिटिसाइज मत करो कि हम क्या पुराना चीज लेके बैठे हुए हैं, बताओ इसको।
इस चीज को आगे शेयर करें, ताकि आज के समय में जो चल रहा है वो पता चल सके कि टेम्पलेट पहले की बनी हुई है, वही बस इम्प्लीमेंट होती चली जा रही है हर एक अरीना में। तो आप इसको शेयर करेंगे तो लोगों को शायद पता चलेगा। आंखें जो चिपकी हुई
जिन
है
लोगों को समझ में नहीं आ रहा है अंग्रेजी में, तो अगर आपको अंग्रेजी आती तो उनको समझाओ बैठ करके कि क्या बोलना चाह रहे हैं। हम डेलिब्रेटली उसको हिंदी में ट्रांसलेट नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम चाह रहे हैं कि आपका जो मेंटल लेवल है थोड़ा उठे ऊपर, जिससे कि आप कम से कम ऑल ओवर इंडिया सबसे आप कंपीट कर पाओ। अगर आप हिंदी के लेके बैठे रहोगे तो आपको कुछ नहीं होने वाला है। डेलिब्रेटली हम लोग इसको मल्टी लैंग्वेज में कर रहे हैं, हिंदी में भी करते हैं, अंग्रेजी में भी करते हैं, जिससे कि आप रियली समझ सको कि क्या है उसका एसेंस क्या है।
दादा
तो तुम्हारे को वो कभी पास समीर जो है वो सिखाई देता है कि यहाँ पे मुसलमानों के मोहम्मद साहब के बाप कहाँ पर पैदा हुआ था और माँ कहाँ पैदा हुई थी।
ठीक है, तो तब तक के लिए धन्यवाद। लाइक करें, शेयर करें, सब्सक्राइब करें, और हम इसी के साथ इसका समापन करते हैं और कल फिर आएंगे अगले अध्याय के साथ। तब तक के लिए
अगले अध्याय
धन्यवाद।
के साथ में और आखिरी अध्याय के साथ में इस सीरीज के आखिरी अध्याय
समापन कर देंगे। तब तक के लिए धन्यवाद। जय हिंद, वंदे मातरम, भारत माता की जय।
जय, भारत माता की जय।
सबको वंदे मातरम, जय हिंद।